Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the second page where we are talking past the points. And welcome to our year in review episode. With me, as always, the ineffable Steve Johnson, our producer behind the desk, and of course, my friend Jay over here.
Welcome to episode 9, everyone. Thank you for tuning in again. We will be doing a year in review. So we'll basically be looking at the top stories of 2017. Of course, this being a political show, we will have, I guess mostly political stories.
This is the all Trump show, baby.
the all
get
Trump
ready
show.
for it now.
We're asking for a mulligan right now in 2017.
Yeah, we are. Please.
Do over 2018.
Do over. I apologize beforehand. I'm a little under the weather, so if I have a lot of sniffles and coughs, I'm sorry, guys. Just trying to tune me out.
It's because of global warming.
It's global warming, right? It's,
Yes,
it's
it's
a really
coming.
cold day.
Specifically for you.
This just in, we got a response from the White House. It says no backsies.
No,
God damn it.
So
Well-
can't have that time.
I'm glad Trump's watching, though. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, considering we're not Fox and Friends, I'm surprised that.
I know, right? We're not the best show ever.
By the way, little known fact: if you go back and watch The Matrix Reloaded, that was Trump sitting in the white suit watching all the TV.
Was it?
Yeah.
Is he an architect of sorts?
Yeah.
The
I
architect
don't
of
know.
He said
the
he's in
destruction of
construction.
America.
Does. Well, I mean, when you got
Think
the
about
best,
it.
when you got the best brain,
He's got good brains.
he's got the best brains. He does.
Anyway, so we have a decent amount to cover today. We're
Do
not
we?
gonna, I guess, stay on every topic forever, but we do have about 20 topics for the top
Oh,
stories
just
of the
20.
year. Just 20. Just
It's
Okay.
52 weeks, 365 days.
I mean,
There's a couple things.
There's a couple of things there, that were kind of
So,
important.
a message to all of our viewers at home and at work or wherever you may
And
be.
abroad.
And abroad. Wherever you may be watching from, please feel free to comment as often as you like. If there's a topic that you think that we really need to talk about or that you think we did not year in review, please feel free to mention it to us, and Steve or myself or Jay, whoever is watching the feed, will bring it up. So, I mean,
And
obviously...
all negative comments will be forwarded to Oswald.
Indeed. I will handle all the negative comments. But, inevitably, there's going to be some things that we're going to miss. We're just going over some big things. But, as we go month by month, if you think something happened and we should talk about it, mention
Let us
it.
know. And
we
with
can
that,
talk about it.
I think we should start with the obvious. January 20th, 2017.
January
with,
20th.
The
Donald-
day that will live in
infamy. Donald J. Trump was inaugurated as POTUS number 45. So what are your thoughts on that, guys? Do you remember where you were, how you felt? I mean, I have a story on that, but I'll get to that.
I
later,
tried.
so.
I stayed up the entire time, and I watched, and I think it was funny, the Saturday Night Live episode that made fun of all the liberals who kept trying to come up with every way possible that Hillary could still win. It's like, well, now if we take New Hampshire and we do this and we do that, and, there's still, I saw it as soon as New Hampshire blinked red. I saw as the entire belt was red. I realized that she was not going to win, and I posted on Facebook, I think that night before, that we all know it's going to rain tomorrow, so no matter who wins, nobody should get on Facebook saying it's raining because this or that. But I honestly felt it.
But you were there at the inauguration, right?
I did. I went to the inauguration, not to protest, not to, do anything crazy. I had to see it for myself.
So you were the one.
I was there. was
Okay.
one person that was not
Okay.
there to protest nor to really support it. Although
No, I mean the one spectator.
Oh,
because, no one came.
there honestly, look, I will attest to it. There was not that many people there. There were plenty of bench seats that were just completely open, bleachers that had nobody in them.
But I mean, Trump did say it was the top.
yeah, I
Yo.
walked through
Spicy.
Yeah.
I walked through all those places that they showed overhead footage of, and there was, I could swing my arms in any direction, I wouldn't hit anybody. I mean, there were people that were up against the railings and were lining the streets. They were, they were bunched together, a lot of supporters and a lot of protesters. The protesters just chanting the same thing over and over again, these little mantras that they do that, honestly, I didn't feel affected by them. I didn't really feel like they were useful, but I guess, if it makes you feel better, do it. And then there were the Trump supporters that, brought their token,
Hoods.
Latino or their token, American flag. And they would make all these kind of, well, he's doing everything great for America. He's going to do all this good stuff for us. And I asked, and I tried to have conversations with these people.
How did that go?
It didn't. They didn't want to have any part. They just
Elaborate.
when I attempted to ask these people to talk about what they actually did, instead of just using rhetoric, instead of using talking points, I asked them, like, why do you really feel like what has he said that has really given you the idea that this will benefit you? And they get angry at me as if I'm trying to pigeonhole them or as I'm trying to get a gotcha.
Here's your problem. You tried to use words. And the Trump presidency is an emotional one.
Yeah.
And he
Fair.
appeals to emotions. And that is sort of the only way, I think, to even have these discussions.
That is definitely true. I really would agree with you on that. That it was an emotional one, because the people that were there lining the streets, they were all fire and brimstone. There was no logic in it.
And that's not to say that it's all bad, that it was based on emotion. I mean, some of those emotions were warranted. You know, the direction that these people
There's
took
a lot of
in
emotion
it.
at Obama's inauguration, but it was in a
different type
direction,
of emotion, a
different
good type of emotion. But
you know, it started raining at exactly noon. As soon
so
as
that
the
was
clock
real,
struck
right? Because
12,
I read that, but you were there.
I
so
was
that
there.
real.
I was standing out front of Trump's hotel. There, that's where I positioned myself in my comfy.
Was
shoes.
that on purpose?
It just just where we happened to walk to, because there was plenty of open space on the sidewalks. I mean, there wasn't like there were crowds blocking anything. There were more protesters than there were supporters. And as his motorcade drove by, you know, I did pull up my phone and I played the Empire's marching theme from Star Wars. Yeah. Well, don't do that, copyright infringement. Can't go more than 3 seconds. So I did do that. I did, because I thought it was very poignant, because that's what it felt like. It felt like we had just allowed a de facto type emperor person, or somebody who at least thought that they should be a full-on 100% leader with no expiration or term limit and no limits to his powers.
Well, so I don't want to. I mean, you're right, but I don't think we need to look at it in those terms, because I don't want to say what is in a guy's head, although his actions tell us exactly what's in his head.
Yeah, or did
his
you see
Twitter
that
account.
coming from that day one?
I think that the difference in those two inaugurations and those two election nights and those two elections was, one election and inauguration was based on what could potentially bring us together, hope. The other was what brings us apart. People voted for this man because they were angry, and he stoked that anger. It wasn't about we're all into this together. It's about who's hurting you and whose fault is it that you're hurting. And again, you know,
it's the South Park rabble, rabble, rabble. They took our jobs. Go after them.
No, but again, I think hate and blame binds us together. This just like love and compassion does, maybe stronger. And you couldn't see like this. He is the bizarro Obama, right? Everything that Obama was, he is the complete opposite. And I think that that's interesting. But him getting elected spoke to something. And again, this is why I say, if he gets impeached, which is what everybody's like, we need to impeach him, that doesn't fix the problem of how he got elected in the first place. We can blame Russia. We can blame the 80,000 votes. We can blame voter suppression. We can blame gerrymandering. But how the fuck did someone like that get that close to where things like fake news could make a difference?
Well, you know, not to belabor the issue, since we do have 51 more weeks to go, it does actually go into the fact that, you know, we actually start the year off with January 5th with James Clapper, CIA director, saying that the Russians did, in fact, interfere with the election, that every single intelligence agency in the United States concurred with that notion. So you have the Obama administration in a lame duck space with a Republican-led Congress doing everything he can to at least try to, in a couple months, put together some sort of a response to this. I mean, but what could you really do? It's not like we can declare war. It's not like you can do anything but expel the diplomats like he did. And then we get into Trump taking office on the 20th. And I mean, honestly, his first executive order was one that made getting a house even harder for people, you know, with the housing authority. Yeah.
I just thought that I've seen every inauguration. Well, not every. I've seen it since Bush's first term. Okay. I've made it a note. I've always liked it, even if I didn't vote for the person in power. I just think that as a nation, you know, we're one of these nations where freedom and our values.
Hi guys, by the way.
Yeah. What's up, Kayla? And it just, to me, is this historic event that deserves respect and deserves the attention of the people in our country. So I make a note of it to watch it, and I do see what you say, that the distinction and the difference between the Obama inaugurations and this one were night and day. And for many reasons, it could be because I wasn't a Trump supporter, or whatever. I'm sure they feel differently, but it's just to me how funny it is that that day it started the same way that the rest of the year went. Like Trump deliberately almost puts his foot in his mouth like on day one and creates these stories and these lies and this fiction where there doesn't need to be any. And then that becomes the story of the day, and Trump's been giving us news every day. He's been giving us a reason to talk, a reason to critique.
Oh no, this is scandal / House of Cards.
Yeah, and I think he loves it. I mean, that's what happens when you get a game host, a game show host as president of the United States. This is exactly
like they
what
said
you
on
get.
The New Yorker. I mean, when you give a game show host access to nuclear weapons, I mean, what does that tell you about the electorate?
That's where the U.S. is at the moment.
But I honestly, though, I just sort of think that we need to sort of, I think the only way we fix this is to take stock of how we got here, right? And so some people may think like, he is an idiot savant where like he is just being him and he wants to change the subject and he has that power, so he'll tweet something crazy that he knows the media can't take their eyes off of, and they'll talk about that for the day until they
like his
get the
global
next
warming
tweet.
tweet.
It makes you wonder what's happening in the background.
Right, but on the other hand, how much of this is he is just a narcissist, right? How much of this is no one has ever told him no?
He's a megalomaniac is what it
That's a
combines
better word
narcissism
for it.
into it, because he has never been told no. He's never actually suffered or had to go through any kind of a
everyone
loss.
around him keeps telling him, yes, this is okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems.
He surrounds himself with sycophants.
Like the Kim Jong-uns and the Gaddafis
and
the
the
world,
Putins,
and the Bashar al-Assad.
So how could you expect him to think anything different? How could you expect him to be introspective?
I don't expect anything anymore.
If his whole life, maybe after his father died, but everyone that he surrounds himself with tells him, yes, I'm the best. And how small of a man do you have to be to constantly remind yourself in the world how big I am and how much the best everything.
A lot of it is self-defense.
Like he is a child, right? And so much of the chaos that we see every day is just because we can't admit that he was wrong. Right? So people...
he can't admit that he was wrong.
No. The people around him can't admit he's wrong.
Okay.
Right? He sent a tweet the other day that his lawyer had to take credit for. Right?
Yeah.
And again...
Which that made it public, no longer under attorney-client privilege.
And again...
I mean, the leaks...
At what point do we say, look, you fucked up. Say you fucked up. That's it. No one can say that to him.
No.
And how can you effectively lead if no one can come to you? And his supporters, if everything he does is right, like, is that what you want? Do you want a leader or do you want a master? You know what I'm saying? And
there's some masochistic people in the electorate, and they might enjoy that, but that was just the first couple weeks of the year.
Yeah, and that says a lot. But to your point, I mean, a lot of the leaks coming up from within the White House, from the people who work with him,
they're coming from Jared Kushner so he could back himself up and say, I wasn't on board.
I don't know who they're coming from, but that is a worry of them, that there's no one in the White House that can step up to him and say, this is what needs to be done, this is what's wrong. Stop tweeting every freaking 5 minutes, stay on point. I mean, the New York Times interview that he just had in Mar-a-Lago, 2 days ago, no one knew that was going to happen. I mean, he literally, someone introduced him to a journalist in the middle of the moment. He's like, well, let me sit down with you and have a one-on-one interview. One in which he didn't sound coherent. He couldn't keep a thought.
And he lied 47 times.
Of course, and the guy could have called him out more on it, but he didn't. But just the fact that as a president that he was able to do that with no one else around him even knowing he was going to do that, that's a problem. But whatever. I mean, like Joe said, there's a lot to cover. So Joe, what
February 3rd.
What happened
2017. So it's like the opening of The Daily Show. One of my favorite shows, by the way. I miss Jon Stewart. But Trevor Noah's doing a great job.
Yeah.
February 3rd, the Rohingya Muslims out of Myanmar fleeing genocide and religious persecution at the Buddhist Burmese government of Myanmar. It might not seem like it's a huge issue to most of us in America because this is a Christian nation and no one gets persecuted here. But halfway across the world, there are women, there are children, there are elderly people that are, they're being dragged out of their houses. Their houses are being burned in front of them, and they're being forced to flee across the border to their neighboring countries because there's nowhere else to go. The government in Myanmar says that they're not doing anything wrong. It's all fake news. And just like the slave trade in Libya, because, if CNN, broadcasts it, then it can't be real, as if all of a sudden no news actually comes out of the network, which I think it's stupid.
Sorry, it's no inconvenient news.
Exactly.
Real.
We can't have inconvenient
There's a
news.
distinction.
But, the most important thing to mention about that is that this is a government that the United States will not stop supporting, even though it's a military government. They promised that they were going to be more democratic this year, and now all of a sudden they're committing basically ethnic genocide against the Rohingyas, and we're not saying anything about it. We're not doing anything about it. We're not threatening to embargo them like we're doing with North Korea or with Iran or with Syria.
Because it's not convenient to.
Because it's not convenient. They're not strategically important, except for the fact that it's nice to have allies in that part of the world, in Southeast Asia. But these are Buddhists that are supposedly fearing that the Muslims are taking over, and they're pushing them out and murdering them. And these are people that were living in huts. They were living in these villages, and they were fishing. They weren't doing anything. They weren't political. They weren't protesting. They were just living next to Buddhists, and it doesn't matter if they're Buddhists or Christians or Sikhs or whatever. The cohesion isn't there, and it is a microcosm of what could happen in America. Everybody's like, "Nah, that could never happen here. You're just trying to start some shit," and I'm not. I'm just saying that it's not like it has not happened here. We've had trails of tears. We've
Japanese internment camps.
We've had internment camps. I mean, in the last 100 years, we've had the fear of the Jews. We turned them away when Hitler was killing them. We said, no, that's not a problem. They're just being all whiny and stuff, and we turned them away.
Yeah, look at DACA right now. I mean, what's Trump's ultimatum right now? We're not going to fix DACA if we don't get a wall.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's
nothing in there about Mexico paying for it.
He gave that up real quick. No, but I mean, I agree with you. There's nothing more that I have to add on the topic, more so than I agree that it could happen anywhere, and the thought of, it can't happen here. It's happened many times in history. It happened in Germany. It's happened in other places until it happens. And I think that's when people get comfortable, when people think that they're safe, they put their guard down and they let a fascist dictator take over and just change the direction of a country,
they're afraid of the
values of our country. Yeah, and we shouldn't, and that's the crazy part, right? We shouldn't fear our military. We shouldn't fear our government. But then it so happens that we have to start fearing them, or something leads to that, and that's not good. And it could lead down a path that we never envisioned us going down, just like all these countries have or are going through. And that to me is worrisome, and I think this is a very sad thing that's happening. Mm-hmm. It's still going on. I mean, you're talking about February 3rd. We're in January, we're at the end, we're in December now, almost at the start of 2018. It's still being, I mean, the Pope was just there a few weeks ago, and I don't know exactly what he said or didn't say, but I know there's this whole thing about him not using the word Rohingya. He's a great Pope. I fucking love the guy, and I'm not even religious. I love that guy. But Steve, anything you want to throw in there, or?
Look, I mean, if you talked to me a year and a half ago, I would have told you there are some things that there's no way in hell could happen, and they happen. So there's this, and it's funny that you said like an authoritarian leader getting into office, but like slavery exists today, right? Yeah. These are things that you just thought
slaves are being traded in Libya.
Yeah,
literally slaves.
Yeah,
right. And I'm not diminishing sex slaves, but not sex slaves.
These are labor, just mow my lawn, do my garden, clean my house, and I can whip you whenever I want.
And all because they're escaping prosecution too. So imagine that type of life. Like how must these people, like, how do they feel? Like, you're escaping prosecution from your own country to land on shores of another country just to be then sold into slavery. Like, that's just a miserable life, and it's sad that it's happening. And we don't talk about it.
It happened in the 1200s. I think it was the Kids' Crusade. All these kids got lined up, and then they were sold into slavery in the Ottoman Empire or wherever it was.
Well, I'm glad that what happened in the 1200s is still happening now in 2017.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, between the Rohingyas coming out of Myanmar, Burma, I'm not even sure what we're supposed to call it anymore. And what, everything that's happening all over, especially in Africa. I mean, there's just no way to say that the world is at peace right now.
No, it hasn't been at peace for a while.
February 13th.
A day that will live in infamy.
Well, at least for the Kim Jong family.
He got rid of a possible usurper.
Well,
was his name Kim Jong?
Kim Jong Nom.
Nom.
Yes, the oldest brother of Kim Jong Il.
Yeah.
Or who's the one in charge?
Kim Jong Un.
Kim Jong Un.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Un, like Uno,
like
Uno, one Un. Well, he still had his older brother killed. He had his uncle killed when he first took power, threw a bunch of people to the
He's
dogs.
had a bunch of people killed since he's in
Yeah,
power.
I know. It's easy. Well, not only is he a coward, but as Trump referred to him as Little Rocket Man, he's also somebody who is just as unstable and might have nuclear weapons, which I know there's plenty of people that are like, we got to go in there and take down North Korea. We got to get rid of the nuclear weapons, and they're terrible and terroristic and all this kind of stuff. And I just keep thinking about,
Very hard
we
task,
talk about
man.
our sovereignty all the time. And Nikki Haley bitch moans and complains, with Donald Trump obviously pulling the strings. I think Nikki's actually a pretty good ambassador.
I don't. I think that she's been given credence because she doesn't sound like an idiot. But like, if you look at some of the positions that she's held, she's not.
Nonetheless,
she wouldn't be considered credible in any other
She's
administration.
acutely aware that anything she says could have her removed, and then she would have given up being the governor of South Carolina on top of getting fired by Donald Trump.
I think she's definitely positioning herself for future,
Absolutely.
future
But
presidential
again,
run.
in any other administration, she would not have been given.
No. But to finish my thought, though, that about North Korean sovereignty, I mean, you have situations all over the world where we make a deal with Iran, tell them, get rid of your nuclear weapons, and we'll remove these sanctions, and your economy will be better. And bam, we make a deal with them, and then another administration comes in, and we can chop it all to bits, not certify them, let it go straight to hell, and basically go back on our deal. We go to places, like Libya, where we told them, give up your yellow cake, give up your nuclear ambitions, and we will not come in there, we won't hurt you. And then bam, another administration comes in, we overthrow their government, we kill their leader. That was Obama. The only place I can think of that actually willingly and voluntarily gave up a nuclear program and didn't really suffer from it was South Africa. But besides that, North Korea looks at the facts. They look at, if we negotiate with them and then give it up, we're going to lose.
Our days are numbered.
We're going to lose. If we just straight up give it up, we're going to lose. And this is a country that has been colonized, abused, raped, and pillaged by its neighbors for thousands of years, and they will never let that happen again. That's what the Kim Jongs do. They tell their people, no one will ever hurt you again as long as you're on my side, and they will do everything they can to support them. So I completely understand that point of view, and I think that it's a little bit ignorant to say we should just blow them up because they want nukes. They want nukes because they know that's the only thing that keeps a giant superpower like Russia or the United States or China from just walking in there and taking their whatever they have left.
And those same fears are the reason why he assassinated his half-brother, because he thought that maybe, the Europeans or the Chinese or even the U.S., obviously the CIA, would push for him to become, because he is the eldest son of the former supreme leader of North Korea, and he doesn't have he should have been the head of the family, he should have been the leaders in North Korea. He just didn't have an interest of it. He was schooled in the U.S., I think in Geneva, lived outside the country, almost in a self-imposed exile, and he really had no interest aside from the fact that he could make a legitimate claim. And then he was assassinated almost like in a James Bond movie type way by two women in an
that's
airport.
The thing in the airport
Yeah,
where they just tapped him on the back of the neck or something like that?
No. They had a nerve agent on their hands, and they literally went behind them and ran to the bathroom, washed their hands, and by the time he made it to the freaking ambulance, he was done. He had 2 times more than he would have needed to die. I think his brain failed, kidney, liver, his whole body just failed. And literally, that's crazy. That's what you see in a movie, and that's how he was killed. And just the audacity of Kim Jong-un, he literally got away with murder that's on camera, and nothing's gonna happen to him. And he did it because of the fear of the internet. He doesn't.
He doesn't travel
for the fear of the international community replacing him at a whim. Because that's what they felt like doing, and he just took out someone that could have done anything.
Who's that basketball player that keeps going over there to hang out with the
Dennis Rodman?
But so here's the
fucking
thing.
asshole.
Put a little nerve agent in his basketball.
I am. I'm on a little vacation now, and I'm using that time to read the Game of Thrones book. I'm on the second book now.
Wow, that was quick reading because you were book 1 last week.
Yeah. I had nothing better to do. But so there's a line in there that Varys. It's a riddle that Varys sort of says to Tyrion Lannister.
Okay.
And he says there is a priest, a king, a commoner, and a man with the sword. And every one of them says to kill the other one. Who has the power there? Who does the swordsman listen to?
A man, a priest, and a
commoner,
a
soldier,
a
priest, and a king.
Okay.
Every one of them commands the man with the sword to kill the other ones. Who does the soldier listen to?
I guess probably himself, but then again,
The king.
If I had a sword, I would just win. So
Who's he loyal to? I don't
Well,
understand.
but that's the point.
Right.
The question is the nature of power and who really has it.
Okay.
So, does it lie with the common folk? Does it lie with the king? Does it lie with the priest?
Well,
Or
in
does
North
it just
Korea's
lie-
case, it lies with the commoners because that he
Or-
obsessively propagandas.
Or does it lie with the
No.
man with the sword? Because ultimately,
If the man with the sword doesn't know that the power is in his hands, then does it matter?
He's swinging the thing and he's deciding who to listen to. He could listen to no one, or he could listen to any one of
It's
them.
true, but with a 9 million man standing army, North Korea still has the largest standing army in the world, and that's because all of their citizens, if they want to eat, you got to be a
Well,
soldier.
but I think that's the point of the riddle, which is might makes right. The man with the sword, that army is a sword.
I suppose that's
Right.
why Donald
For
Trump
sure.
always wants to be perceived as this big brutish, thug with weapons and power, and he doesn't want people to realize that he uses golden toilet paper and and loves
Shout out
Diet
to
Coke.
So Beta.
So
he's
Beta.
watching.
Yeah, everybody we got some people tuning
We
in
got some
throughout.
peeps
It's
today.
nice. Got Doug and my friend Joe Wotecki.
And
In any
Anthony.
case, February 28th, the end of February, we're talking about the 2016 coup that led to, in February 28, 2017, 40,000 people, including 10,000 soldiers, being arrested and detained in Turkey. They blame it on this Gulen guy who's hanging out in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And they said that, and I honestly, when I heard about it, I was like, oh man, they might actually succeed. This Rajab Tayyip guy, he's a dictator.
I thought they
The
were
military
going to.
said no, but you know what? They made mistakes.
I was following this all night, the whole next morning, watching those tanks, and I'm like, oh, they're definitely going to get to him. And then when everything just turned, I was shocked.
They made
I was
mistakes
shocked.
because the president was not properly arrested because they didn't know where he was at the time. So they logistically made mistakes. They didn't find Rajab Tayyip. They didn't know where he was at the time. And Erdogan was able to get on national TV and
Turkey.
talk to people. Yes,
Yeah.
in Turkey. He was able to talk to the people, and that's the second mistake that they made. If you're going to stage a coup, you have to take over the media, you have to take over the radio, television, you have to block the internet, and you have to secure the de facto leaders.
Okay, hang on a second. Sorry. You have to take over the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, they did it right in Zimbabwe. So
I'm just hang on. Here.
sorry. Go
I think
ahead.
he's trying to draw some dots.
So internet, right? And I remember a certain net neutrality bill passing.
That never happened. Fake news.
You have to take over the radio stations and the news stations, and now you have those new
Fox,
laws that allows networks to sort of now own newspapers
And you have to know where the
broadcast.
president is.
Yeah.
And that is how you successfully stage a coup, especially in a military dictatorship-like regime. But Turkey was supposed to be a secular nation, and now they arrested all these people. They arrested teachers. They arrested military people. They arrested everybody they thought even had an inkling of being supported.
Thousands of people in jail right now.
Yeah,
He brought back the death penalty.
Yeah,
too.
and just because they might disagree with the government a little bit, so anybody that disagreed with the government, you're arrested, you're replaced. And now they
Lock
go
her
from
up.
being a secular country that was once a parliamentary democracy to now being a presidential republic because he secured a change to their constitution that gave him almost unlimited power. And they were able to start putting religious things back into school texts. Where now we
can say Christmas again.
Yeah, well, I don't know what they don't really have Christmas in the Islamic.
Do you know how
world,
bad
but-
it's gotten that there's this for Oklahoma City for the NBA? There's this guy called Enes Kanter. He's a Turkish basketball player that plays on the team. He's tweeted. That's all he's done is he's tweeted against Erdogan, and he just got convicted for 4 years, a 4-year prison term in Turkey. So he can never step foot in this country again, or he's facing 4 years of prison for simply tweeting out against the president.
Yep.
And that's how bad it's gotten in Turkey, literally over the span of less than a year.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they were talking about on the.
So
on
it could
NPR.
never happen, right?
That's what they were talking about on NPR today. And the guy, the Yusuf gentleman from Egypt, the John Stewart of Egypt, they call him. He was saying, he was the only one out of millions and millions of people who live in the Middle East. He was the only one with a TV show that had the audacity to satirically make fun of the military or those in power. And they don't like that. After the Arab Spring happened, they realized that if people start realizing that they can disrespect the authority, that they can stand up to authority, then there's revolution at hand. And after the Arab Spring, everybody thought, all this democracy is going to sweep the Middle East. It didn't. It just got rid of the old dictators and replaced them with a little bit younger ones. Hosni Mubarak still got a military dictatorship in Egypt. You still got one in Tunisia. Bashar al-Assad is still in power in Syria.
You ever notice dictator starts with dick?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then
Are you trying to allude to anything there?
Just saying, not by happenstance.
Well, moving then to March 7th. March 7th. Yeah, we should have sound effects every once in a while. All great radio shows have sound effects.
I am your sound effect.
That's
we got to work on that.
You could be our guy like from Police Academy.
Yes.
We'll be ready for 2018, okay?
Indeed. Again, anybody watching that has something to throw in there, we're already 1/4 of the way through the year.
Yeah, if you want to do.
Wait, wasn't Brexit
beatboxing.
March 28th?
Oh, Dom.
March 7th.
Dom
God damn
Mello,
it.
what's happening? What's happening? What's
What up,
happening?
Dom? What up,
This is
Dom?
a good friend of mine, and he is a Trump supporter. I hope he contributes.
Oh,
Indeed.
what's up, Dom?
Okay, so March 7th, the WikiLeaks.
Oh, you're talking about WikiLeaks. Okay, my
WikiLeaks
bad.
revealed that the CIA was surveilling private citizens both internationally and in our backyard. A whole litany of information that had come out that even during the Obama and Bush administrations that the CIA had been illegally spying on civilians that had nothing to do with terrorism or had nothing to do with violence or insurrection, anything like that. And it just set into motion just day after day after day of people being able to throw conspiracy theories out there now because it's true. The government is watching you. They have 10,000 cameras in New York City, 10,000 cameras in Las Vegas. You got a webcam on your computer. Everything you type into a computer is being watched
Supposedly,
by
like
the corporation or the government.
The Amazon machines can hear you.
feeling, and call it a hunch. I think we're being watched right now.
It's a hunch. Are we being
do you
watched? I would love it if we were
by
being
a
watched.
few people.
I know. It's
But I mean,
a
look,
few.
did WikiLeaks coming out with that really surprise you, or did that need to happen for more people to wake up? I mean, we've been knowing that we've been watched. I mean, post 9/11 U.S. and the entire world for that matter.
I don't know.
After the
I
Patriot
feel
Act, I
like-
mean, how can you not know there? I mean, look
feel
at
like
London.
As a kid, I always assumed never to say anything crazy on the phone because I always assumed like, even though J. Edgar Hoover was long dead, I felt like
He was still
they would
listening.
be listening to you on the phone. So I always felt the same way about the internet. You know what I mean? Like it always baffled me that people are so willing to give all their information to Google. And
Well,
then
that's
be
what some people
surprised
say to
when-
politicians. They're like, it's now legal to buy someone's search history. You can go, and these politicians that claim to be all right with God, and I'm the best thing since the pureness of sliced bread. And then you go and you find their search history, and they're reading about, dudes doing dudes in Dude Town, and
Dudes doing dudes in
how
Dude
much
Town.
they
Say that 5 times fast.
Is this about Ted Cruz?
Yeah,
Or Santorum.
I can't wait for somebody to find like a Pat Toomey or Rick Santorum or Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz's search history with just something that they've hypocritically been so against on there in the affirmative. Because it would be lovely.
But then again,
There's
would
a
that be
walking-
surprising though?
It wouldn't be surprising, but it
But-
would be lovely because the best thing that humans have to counter other humans' actions is shame. It's
Shame.
Okay, no,
Shame.
hang on
Shame.
though. Like I feel like a lot, and if we're talking about people finding out that people are into things that they were outwardly against, like you need look no further than Ted Cruz's support of Donald Trump, right?
Or Marco Rubio.
Oh Jesus.
So you mean everyone that tucked their tails between their legs after they knew he was going to win?
And again, this is not
pussy
even
out of
about
their-
this. And that sentence is not about Trump per se. That is about how could you, Ted Cruz? This guy said that your dad killed JFK.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my goodness.
He called Marco Rubio Little Marco.
Little
Both of
Marco.
those guys said that Trump is a pathological liar. I'm not saying he's a pathological liar. I mean, I have said that, but I'm saying
Wink.
they said that, and now it's just like backbreaking support. And now Marco Rubio just now put out a statement saying that he thinks maybe the tax bill has gone too far.
Yep.
On the court.
It would have been nice if somebody had a chance to read it.
Yeah,
You know?
and not rush, one,
it would have actually been really unfortunate.
generation-changing bill into one fucking
And
know,
month.
it
if you
would've been
want
so
to talk
unfortunate.
about people with no shame, Jason
Shame.
Chaffetz.
Fuck Jason. I'm glad he's gone.
I'm done with that
So
guy.
Like,
I blame
remember
Utah.
when he?
Orrin
remember-
Hatch should be next.
No,
Orrin
hang
Hatch is
on.
next.
But remember when the tape came out, like the Access Hollywood tape came out, and when Trump was losing support, And when they all thought he was a foregone conclusion, they all jumped all over themselves to say, "Oh, I don't support this guy." Jason Chaffetz comes out, says, I'm pulling my support from Trump because I don't know how I could hear that tape and look my daughters in the eye." And then after the Comey stuff comes out and he feels like there's a chance again, I'm like, does your daughter not have eyes anymore?
Look, but
Like, it's the same thing that happened with Roy Moore. They thought that they weren't going to be able to go with him, and then they realized that they were closing in on the polls, so the GOP brought their support back. They still lost, unfortunately.
And as much
for
as I
Chaffetz,
don't like Trump,
Trump won.
Trump has always been Trump.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's been lying left and right, and he should watch his mouth, right? But he's never sort of, in all his lies, he's never lied about who he was.
No.
These guys who pretended they cared about values and cared about the truth just don't give a shit now.
But that's why
because
people
they're
don't-
riding Trump's
Yeah.
coattails.
But that's exactly
As
why
long as they
people
can.
don't believe in our government anymore. Why we don't believe in politicians. Why everyone is just so. Why we second guess everything people say, because convictions right now are fickle. Like, no one really has any more conviction as long as they're holding on to their seat, to their power, to their ability to govern and help their friends in the way they see fit. They'll say and do whatever they need to at the drop of a hat. If one day, the whole country's temperament is versus Trump, they'll jump on that bandwagon. Once that's over, they'll jump right
As soon as
back.
Bob Corker
So,
found $2 million in the tax bill for
Jeff
him, he flipped
Flake,
his vote.
McCain, all of them, McCaskill,
I
they're all
do-
the heroes we were spouting, and you correctly said, don't call them fucking heroes. Steve, you ended up being right, because these assholes just betrayed us. When we thought there was like this little faction within the GOP that was going to stand firm and not go against Trump, especially people have nothing to lose. I mean, Flake is not running. McCain, I respect the guy. And he might die in office. I mean, these people really have nothing left to lose. Couldn't really just, hold their ground on this. Surprise me and upset me. And I'm pissed off that we were wrong about that.
I don't know why you're surprised, but
yeah, because maybe I'm naive. But that's what I'm saying, right? It's this whole fickle, like, no one stands by their convictions or their beliefs anymore.
But you don't have to, right?
No, because
if-
no one
if-
holds them accountable.
Well, it's not. No one holds them accountable. Yes, but
They
like
keep
no
getting
one has
elected.
the attention span for it.
True,
Right?
maybe.
So it is all about the news of today, and I wonder, right? Will the Republicans still have steadfast support for Trump now that they got their tax cut?
I think
right?
they will, of course.
If he's talking about a big infrastructure plan, unless they're doing entitlement reform where they're gonna like pull healthcare and social services away from
Well,
people.
that's what he says he wants to do his second term.
Oh, okay.
He's already talking about his second term.
Great.
His
Yes.
campaign already filed paperwork to run
My
in 2020.
point is, like, they got what they wanted, right? And I don't really know what else they stood for other than like entitlement reform. So if they're going to do that in this term, if they're not going to do
The
that,
thing
I
is
don't
that
see
the
them
Republicans see
standing
that
behind Trump.
this blue wave, the blue tsunami everybody's talking about is moving in the direction that it historically has, where whatever party's in office in the White House, the opposition party tends to take more seats back. They see that coming, so what they're doing is they're trying everything they can to get everything that they want done now, so that when Democrats do take over the majority
They can
again,
blame them
they
when
can
the shit
blame
hit
them
the
for
fan.
everything after the Democrats fix the problem. They blame them for high taxes, they blame them for other stuff, and then they ride this angry wave back into some other majority. That's what you had when Bush was president, when Obama was president. You had the Republicans, they threw their tax cuts down people's throats. We hit recessions. The Democrats came in, fixed it. They lost office because we got people riled up and angry about some other things that weren't important at the time, but still got 1,000 Democrats kicked out of office and replaced with Republicans who had no plan, who had no platform, except that they were angry, and that's how they won the House, the Senate, and the White House. They see it happening again, so now, the Senate's trying to change rules that would allow appointment confirmations to go from 30 hours to 8 hours. And basically just do things by simple majority while they're still in power. And then just like in North Carolina, but
They're gonna try to
different,
change
they're going
the
to try and
rules
change
back.
the rules right before a new session is
But
sworn
that
in.
got overturned, though.
But it got overturned because it was a state. This is the Senate. The Senate can make its own rules, and the Supreme Court can't touch it. The Supreme Court cannot touch
until
the
we
rules
went
of
back
the
to Senate. Look, the only reason why I don't think that the Republican Party will jump ship yet on Trump is exactly for what you guys are saying right now is the 2018 midterm elections. Even though he might be the biggest hindrance to them keeping power, they can't look like a broken party now. If the Democrats come back and they win the Senate and they win the House, maybe you're going to see a complete just crack of the of the Republican Party. and this, and they're gonna have to figure out what are we gonna do moving forward. Are we gonna let this guy be our standard bearer? Can he lead us into 2020 and win again, or are you gonna see a bunch of them lining up again and give him a primary challenge? I don't know, but I don't think we're going to see any of that until later next year, going into 2019.
Anyone who gives him a primary challenge is destined or doomed to failure.
Well, right now,
right?
the only
Do
person
you
saying
really think that?
the only person saying it right now is Senator Jeff Flake, saying he's not ruling out,
which is why he wrote that book.
And then you also have Mark Cuban saying that he might challenge
him, and he might win. I mean, he will win Texas if that happens.
Well, here's the problem with it's a flawed thing. Anyone doing that is essentially giving it to the Democrats.
No,
and I'll tell you
primary.
Why.
It's just battle wearing out the main guy, making him spend his money.
His support, Trump's support, is still steadfast at around 30%. That's not going anywhere. It doesn't matter what he does. You can't come in to a primary saying I'm the sensible guy and I'm gonna win minus that 30%.
But you can if 2018 goes the way they don't want it to go. That's what I'm saying. Right now, in the environment we are in now, you're absolutely right.
It'll be a mutiny.
Yeah, but if in 2018, under his leadership, they lose a House and they lose a Senate, I think something will change. I'm not saying he's going to lose all his support and impeachment. I don't think none of that will happen. I don't think Trump's going to get impeached. I think Trump will make it to the end of his first term. Even if the Democrats take the Senate and the House, I think that will happen.
And I think Robert Mueller's investigation is either one going to come up inconclusive, or he will make a recommendation and the Congress will do nothing about it. And I'm not even sure if a Democratic Congress would do anything about it.
And you know what? To this extent, I don't think they should. I think if the damage Trump does is so significant that we can flip both chambers in 2018, which was not expected at all, then I think you almost, as a Democrat, just say, hey, let him ride out the next 2 years. Let's see how much more damage he can inflict on himself and the party, and see if we can't take 2020 back.
A recipe for disaster.
Civilians are always the ones that have the most damage in a war, and when Democrats and Republicans go to war, more civilians are going to be hurt than anybody else. Yes, some of the grunts on both sides are going to go down. You might pick off a couple of their generals, i.e. some senators, some Republicans or whatever, but the Mitch McConnells are not going anywhere. The Paul Ryans are not going anywhere. The Donald Trumps, the Pelosi's, the Schumers, they're going to be there. They're going to work the machines in their favor, and whatever makes them look good, they're going to continue doing. This touches on to our last episode where we talked about the fact that we have more parties, and it's really difficult to run for office unless you're a Democrat or a Republican and you kiss enough ass to have their support.
By the way, Al Franken may not go anywhere.
I hope he doesn't. I saw that speech. I was watching the speech with Joe that night.
No. But did you hear Joe Manchin saying, like, I think we rushed too fast and he should have submitted himself to the ethics investigation.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now that we got Roy Moore out the way, hey, that Al Franken thing, I don't know.
Which is why I told you I did not agree with it at all. Like, you were just posturing to take the moral high ground for something
that's also pretty disgusting, and I think it would blow back on them. But
it was obvious when it happened what they were doing, and that's what I felt.
Yeah, but even if it's obvious, you have to go through with it.
Honestly, I think they were just waiting for public opinion to majoritarily, even though it's not a word, but you get the root of the word. You get the root of the word. You're waiting for the majority of people within the base
to not agree with what happened,
to disagree with it, to say, yeah, I don't know, but let's forgive him on this one, and then they're all like, okay.
Okay.
I just think that will blow back on them in 2018.
It will, but then
you cannot say you're taking the
first
moral
Republican to say that, though, is going to be like, "Did you support Roy Moore?"
Yeah, or do you have any allegations hidden in your closet somewhere? I don't know. But look, I don't know. Let's get into Brexit, right? Our
March 28th.
Our lower third right now has been Brexit for like the last 10 minutes.
March 28th, 2017. The Brexit invokes Article 50, which is the Britain being allowed to leave the Union, and honestly, I don't think they expected it to even happen in the first place. I don't think they expected that vote to go that way. Nope. They probably weren't expecting people to say, let's leave, because I don't think most people in England, in the United Kingdom rather, understood fully what would happen if they left. They thought that they could just leave and not be subject to all the rules and the courts of the European Union, but at the same time keep all the benefits, keep the travel, keep the money, the economy, all that stuff. I don't think they realize how many workers, how much finance that goes to London, how much travel, how much tourism, how much of everything.
How much harder it's going to be when you can't use a Euro passport and just kind of go border through border.
I was actually in London around the time, a little bit after the vote.
And what was the feel that you got?
So, and this is just talking to a few random people I met, like a cab driver, a bartender.
I mean, those
whatever.
are some of the best
Right.
opinions you can get, right? The everyday guy.
The cab driver was basically saying he was in support of it because he doesn't think that Britain should be subject to the EU's immigration laws.
Okay.
Meaning, if you go to France and they have sort of easy immigration, or Germany, right? So you can go and become basically a member of the European Union. You become a German citizen, right? Now you can just go drive or take the train over to London and basically use all the benefits of their socialist society. And it's like now they basically have to take in and pay for people from all over Europe, where it's sort of bankrupting them, and they sort of felt like they shouldn't have to do that. Like, yes, we're a socialist society and we'll take care of people from Britain, but there's so many imports from around the union coming in.
Well, it wasn't necessarily just because there were...
And again, that is just the view of like a cab driver.
Of course,
right?
And I'm not taking that as your viewpoint. But, when I was over there studying at Cambridge, we were talking about how Scotland was thinking about seceding, and Britain was telling them, no, you're stronger within this union, within the United Kingdom. You're stronger. Not looking at the back note that, Scotland is the only submarine launching base for Britain's nuclear submarines, that there's a lot of natural gas and oil up there. Of course, you don't want Scotland to leave the United Kingdom. And then right after they defeat that referendum, they decide on Brexit. They decide to leave the European Union, not thinking about all the downsides to it. Like, yes, you're no longer subject to the European courts. So when you...
Well, this is a long process.
Of course, absolutely a massive long process. Theresa May tried to call the snap elections to get a majority, to get a strong enough majority to push through all of these things. And now they have to negotiate with a coalition government, and they're not going to get everything they wanted out of the Brexit deal because they have to make deals with all the other 26 nations in the European Union.
And they're going to be tough on them. They've said, if you vote to leave, we're not going to take it easy on you.
It should
we
not
don't
be
care
easy.
that you're Britain.
I mean, at the same time, it's kind of just like, saying, this Catalonia wants to leave Spain. They couldn't just expected that just
you're jumping around, man.
They're in Barcelona. I'm just saying, but they couldn't have just expected that they would just be able to leave and that would be it.
Yeah.
You can't just do that. Vermont can't just leave the Union. California, maybe. They got an ocean. They got mountains. They got Mexico.
There are slight differences though with that, right?
They've also been like 1 foot in, 1 foot out of this whole European
Union. Yeah, they
Union.
never took the euro. They kept the pound. Right. Yeah, they kept the pound. So, and there are slight differences. Like, I mean, you were the one that kind of broke it down for me why a state can't secede the way I thought it would be, with the distinction with the Constitution and then actually the Declaration of Independence. Same thing goes for Catalonia. There are rules which make it almost very impossible for them to secede. That is not the case with the European Union. There are articles which, was it Article 51?
Article 50.
50. So, I mean, there was something in place to facilitate this and make it happen. No one thought it would happen, but then again, it's not impossible. I just think Britain shot themselves in the foot, and I think they just carried on with this whole nationalistic push that happened in 2016, which, brought up Trump into the presidency. People thought Marie Le Pen had a shot in France.
Also in Germany.
In Germany, yeah. Merkel got a really, strong fight from the right. I forget the name of the person. But, yeah, there was this whole wave in the beginning of the year where people were thinking, shit, the whole right-wing thing's going to take over Europe. And Brexit was one of these things with the Trump presidency that was like, shit, this is happening. And I'm glad it balanced itself out. I think this is the last big thing that the right-wingers took, or made happen, was Brexit. I don't know if there's anything, you can correct me, that happened after that, but Macron's win in France, Merkel's win in Germany, those things kind of kept the status quo somewhat, where it was before all this.
Now let me ask you a question.
Yeah, ask away.
I know, like, these people are terrible, right?
Who?
Like the Trump administration and Theresa May and
still don't know how she's prime minister.
But we as liberals have long complained about the world order being crooked and in shambles. I just find it funny now that as liberals we sort of support the establishment, right? For people that have thought like the world is unfair, it's all corrupt, it's all crooked, now it's like, well, we need the centrists and we need the establishment to come and put on the big boy pants.
So many people are very willing to say the grass is greener on the other side until you actually hop that fence and you realize it's just a different kind of green, and maybe I liked my lawn the way it was.
Or
you start realizing you do need centrists. You do need those people that you thought were your enemies at first, but really were that balancing of the yin and the yang, the swing of the pendulum that were keeping it, intact and from flying off into the atmosphere.
Yeah, I think when you're safe, you have the luxury of complaining
But
about
I don't
how terrible.
I don't know.
things
I don't know if the word safe. I think maybe it's just more comfortable in what you know.
are. Yeah.
Me personally, I don't side with the centrists or the moderates now. I do, to the extent that I think Trump is a catastrophe to the country. But then again, I don't think Hillary would have been that. No,
Stop
she would have
it.
been
Don't
better.
Do it.
But she
Don't do it to
wouldn't. No,
yourself.
but she wouldn't have been that much of a change from where we've always been. I mean, she's a war hawk. She had ties to to big money, to corporations, and that is a problem that all of our government is facing right now, whether you're Democrat or Republican. So I'm down with burning the establishment down. I'm just not down with the way Trump's doing it. And that's the only reason why I want to push back.
But
I guess if our team was the one doing the burning and whatever, maybe I might be with them. But I really do think that there has to be a major change in the way we do, our politics in this country, the way governance is done. And I'm not quite, that could be a whole other episode. We've touched on it a couple of times, but I don't think I'm a centrist or a moderate, and I like where we're at.
Remember, there's a difference between fairness and justice. The world is not fair, but it can be made just, and that's what human beings do to each other. And what it's really all interpretive. Trump thinks that building a wall is justice for white America because somehow a wall is going to keep people out. I mean, most ladders in America were built in Mexico. So honestly, thinking that this wall is going to keep people out or keep us safer, it's not a physical wall that's going to keep us safer. It's the idea of the wall. It's the thought he puts in your head that we are going to protect ourselves.
It's all emotion.
It's all emotion, exactly.
And that's a visual thing he can point to and say, I did that.
Well, when Obama was president, we all were sitting in what I believe was coined the Obama bubble bath, where everybody got in and we got soft and soggy and waterlogged, and we thought that the 8 years of Obama's presidency was going to last forever, not thinking about what was going to happen afterwards, what would be the reaction to us sitting in this pool of water and soap and bubbles and being all clean and thinking the world was just and right now, not realizing that forever, since the beginning of time, there's always been a swing back, that there's always been someone that wants to throw, the bathwater out with babies and all. So I think that it's very easy to say that we came across that situation, the pendulum had swung backwards, and just because, you might classify yourself as a liberal or as a conservative, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be some injustice. There's always going to be something to complain about. And there will also be a modicum of hypocrisy, or there will be us, Democrats or liberals saying, the world order the way it is, we need to keep it, and don't let any more right wingers take over. And then when we get our Obamas and our Clintons and our whatnots back in office, we're going to say, hold tight, keep the establishment the way it is. It's always going to be like that.
I would. Can Anthony Pacheco? He said it's fake hope. Can you elaborate?
Fake hope is.
I think he's talking about Obama, but I'd like some elaboration on that comment. Anyways, look, we're only 1/3 through the list.
So we're getting there.
Wait, I want to
to
play something. It is from The Dark Knight.
Okay. Fucking love that.
Do we have
And
copyright?
he's talking
allowance
about
for
the
this?
Joker.
Okay. You should paraphrase.
I know
so
what
we
you're
don't
gonna
get
put.
sued.
No, we won't
Alfred?
get sued for this.
Alfred, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes
So
a man just
let
loves to
me-
watch the world burn.
Yes.
Yeah, for the sake of yeah.
You crossed the line for wisdom, you hammered them to the point of desperation. And in their desperation, they turned to a man they didn't fully understand. With respect, Master Wayne, perhaps this is a man you don't fully understand either. Long time ago, I was in Burma. My friends and I were working
Myanmar.
for the local government. They were trying to buy the loyalty of tribal leaders by bribing them. But their caravan faded in a forest by bandits. So we went looking for sons. 6 months. Anyone. One day, I saw a child playing. Bandit. Still. Well, because sport. Some men aren't looking. These
And that's it.
Fucking love it.
Yeah, well,
So in this analogy, who's who?
They didn't. It's not let him associate who's who, because the whole point is we're supposed to allude. You're supposed to feel it. You're supposed to say, I know who's who in this video. and honestly, I mean, it would be wrong to pigeonhole Alfred or Bruce Wayne into any one particular person, but I think it's pretty obvious that they are talking similarly to the world that we're living in right now, that there just are people, madmen. There are people who just do not care what happens. They don't care about themselves. They are either psychopathic or sociopathic, and they're not affected by the consequences that their actions have on other people. Sometimes they just, it's like skeet shooting or something, or it's like going hunting. The Trumps don't care about the elephants that they're cutting the tails off of, or the whatever. They just do it for the sport of it. They do it for the fun. It's not, they don't need to do it to survive. It's just fun.
And also, the reason I brought that up is like, okay, we're talking about, Alfred says to Batman, you made them scared. You messed with them, and you didn't think there was going to be a response.
Yeah. And
now in their response, in their desperation, they've turned to a man that they can't understand or control. Right? So, look, Trump is Joker, okay?
Dude, I wanted to
sorry.
say it as soon as it fucking went up. But you guys are, don't fucking say anything. Just let people feel it.
All right, what's next? Where are we going next?
Up, we're talking...
And Obama was Batman, right?
March 30th. We're at the end of March. Only to draw a parallel between how...
Yeah, this is going to be a quick one.
Kim Jong had his brother assassinated and stuff like that. South Korea removed its president, its democratically elected President Park, for taking bribes, for trying to bully Samsung and all these other people, because the president is not supposed to enrich themselves with their office.
What? Wait, what?
So they removed their president for doing such things, and it was a good move. It shows the parallel between how the democratic South Korea took care of their business, and they brought their house in order by getting rid of a president, following their constitution, even though people were angry on both sides, and there was a little bit of violence, not too much. As you go to the north, in a fascist dictatorship, and they just kill people that if you...
By the way,
and it's on camera, and you're still a fucking leader.
Only in 2017 can both sides be like a divisive term, right? Like,
there's good people on both sides.
Except
for the white people. The white people, they're the best.
Those supremacists, they're okay. Anyway, but yeah, thank you for the contrast, Joe. I think that's...
Well, yeah, I mean
there's nothing
think
else
about a
really
contrast
there, right?
with the Korean Peninsula. I mean, the 38th parallel is super militarized. They've been shooting defectors that have been crossing the border for months now.
That video was nuts, by the way. That looked like, again,
Listen,
something out of James Bond.
These are soldiers in North Korea, and they're supposed to be the most well-fed and taken care of in North Korea, and they're defecting because they've got parasites in their stomachs. They're not getting food. Donald Trump is blaming China for giving North Korea oil, and we didn't give them any oil. And then we finally fly a boat out there. We see it's Russian ships that are giving the North Koreans oil, and we're like, there's good people on both sides. You can't keep using that same excuse.
Well, it's because he can't fight his dad, man. Trump can't get mad at Putin.
Honestly,
Putin's going to smack that little ass and just tell him what...
Ben Solo fought his dad.
Well, no.
Do you see any dangerously... lined up catwalks around?
The Aleutian Island chain between Alaska and Russia. Okay. There's a nice catwalk for us to walk right there. Moving on to April 5th.
To your boy again.
Continuing back with North Korea.
I thought we were doing Erdogan.
Yeah, Erdogan.
Well, that's not April 5th. Yeah. That's April 16th. Stay in chronological order.
Dude, then you took some notes I didn't take.
Because you weren't...
My lower third's not going to be right again. All right, Joe.
April 5th, North Korea test fires its first ballistic missile. Might not have been the first ballistic missile, but they test fired a missile that flew over Japan.
Oh, September 2nd, bro.
What are you talking about? No, September 2nd was the hydrogen bomb.
Oh, whatever. I have some lower third there, Steve. You have fun finding it.
All right.
Nonetheless... They fired a missile and it went over Japan, and Japan was like, come on, bro. And then the United States was all like, bro. And then they were like, dude. And then they were
where's my bomb?
Where's my bomb? So they fired a missile over Japan. It falls into the Sea of Japan. Japan's like, you can't do that. And they're like, yes, we can. And the United States all like, well, we're going to give Japan nuclear weapons. And Japan's like, Wait a second. We didn't say
This
that.
is why we have your troops on our bases over here, and
This
why
is-
your
yeah.
submarines are in our waters.
Didn't you like make our emperor not be emperor anymore?
Yeah. We're supposed to be a pacifist country
Yeah.
without a standing army, but sure.
So, well, they have a defensive army, but now Japan wants to alter its own constitution to allow itself to have an army.
I think it should.
And absolutely, it should.
Yeah.
I mean, we are not occupiers anymore.
Quote unquote.
Well, I didn't say.
There's also
quote,
a
unquote.
reason that they don't have a military in the first place.
Well,
You know.
Because they went apeshit
And by
crazy
the
in World
way,
War II.
how funny is it that, you know, everybody, myself included, and I still do. Again, everybody pretended Trump is just like a blithering idiot saying things he doesn't understand, but he's literally doing everything he said during the campaign. Like,
He's getting there.
like, remember when he said, hey, maybe Japan should have nukes? Maybe they should take care of themselves. We're spending too much money. Now we're having conversations of, hey, maybe Japan should have their own military.
Well, and at the same time, that's when Donald Trump went and said South Korea needs to spend more money on its own defense and build and pay more money for the American base that's out there. Yes, all right and good. They should be paying for it. At the same time, if we're going to colonize the rest of the world with our military bases, then it's going to cost us some money. And if we want to continue to antagonize North Korea, which will never invade the South, if it does, South Korea can easily defend itself. I mean, North Korea has a barrage of artillery that would just
They would
level.
obliterate Seoul, though.
They would obliterate Seoul, but that's it. Then they would have nothing. They would have no fuel. They would have no way of counterattacking. They'd have no way of repelling invasion short of doing exactly what the
There's a
Russians did
reason-
during World
yeah.
War II, just throwing bodies at them. And at that point, the South Koreans would be so pissed off that they would probably just blanketly destroy North Korea. I mean, there's no infrastructure there in the first place. Just like Japan in World War II declared war on the United States because we oil embargoed them. They weren't going to be able to continue their war with China, with the Philippines and the rest of the places in South Asia
I mean,
without oil.
If North Korea attacks, like, that's it. They're done.
Yeah.
Who's
They
done?
are
North or South?
North Korea.
Yeah.
Like, they may get one city off, but
It's basically like
Well,
saying Palestine versus Israel.
but
Israel has every single thing that they need to repel
But
an
it will be
attack.
quick, though. I mean, us saying it this way makes it sound like it'll be quick. Yeah, I think North Korea would get destroyed, but it's not going to be overnight. They have
No,
so
what- I
many
guess what I'm
soldiers.
saying
They're going to
is,
put up a
like,
fight till the
okay,
end.
if it's like a soldier on soldier, like ground war,
It would
but
have
will
to be.
It won't be.
Will it-
North Korea does not have an air force. North Korea has 2 ships in its navy. North Korea has artillery, but they've only
Yeah,
got
but you
enough
have
for
to
a couple
march on
rounds
the
of fire.
capital and take the
You
capital.
burn
What are
it.
you-
They don't want the capital. Pyongyang is nothing. They would burn the
So
entirety
you're
of the
going to
north
unify
and
Korea when
reoccupy
the
it.
whole north is just now barren wasteland after you nuke the shit out of it.
Okay,
Kind of
so
a
that's
bad
19
what's going to
wasteland
happen.
now, and
So when the Russians repelled the Germans, it was scorched earth. They burned everything. They burned everything. So
no,
the
I
Germans
guess
had
what
nothing
I'm
to
saying
use.
is North Korea would not march on South
No,
Korea. I
no.
don't think they would. And if they do get this nuclear power,
They don't have enough food. They
No.
couldn't support their armies actually doing
no, but that's
anything.
what I'm saying. Like, so the only plausible attack is if they're gonna
Bomb them.
cultivate a nuclear weapon and
bomb
use it. And if they did that, that's it.
Because
They're
everyone's
done.
going to bomb the shit out of them.
Mutually
after that.
assured destruction. Mad. I mean, the Russians wouldn't like it. The Chinese wouldn't like it. We have nuclear submarines in the Pacific. We'd take them out in 10 minutes. I have no
And-
fear of North Korea.
And China wouldn't.
This is not a Red Dawn situation.
China really.
No,
and
the only reason China supported the North in the first place, because in the 1950s, they didn't want the United States being right on their border with a democratically backed Korean peninsula. So of course they sent 1 million soldiers over the
right,
river.
and it is beneficial for China, for North and South Korea,
Because
not
there's
to be-
25 million people in North Korea that would immediately become refugees if they weren't conscripted into to fighting. The ones
Right.
that flee would flee to China because that's their only border. And northern China is very sparsely populated. It's mountainous. You can't just send Chinese soldiers up there to block it because, that's 25 million people. I don't care. There's
Also,
a billion people in
but,
China.
I mean,
Their army's
if
not
you
as big
have
as they think.
South Korea's economy with North Korea's military, and now you can get provisions because you have the economy to get them the provisions they need.
Pretty
That
formidable
is
country.
a threat to China.
Oh, it's a threat
for
to
sure.
everyone. It's a
And then
threat
you
to
have
everyone.
bases right
No,
on
but
the,
again,
right on the border of
if
China.
if
And
South
at that
Korea is
point,
the
then
one
you
in
no
control,
longer need an American base there.
no, we wouldn't. But we would. I'm saying if we're friends with South Korea, very
Yeah,
good friends,
which is
as
why
we
China
are,
doesn't want us to do anything with North
Right.
Korea. Yeah, it's strategic for them. There's really no love there. More so than they don't want
the most
an
important thing to
American-friendly
China-
nation on the border of their country.
The most important thing to China is that they keep us busy with the whole North Korean threat thing, and they keep it just on a precipice of it could go in disaster so that we don't pay attention to Taiwan, South China Sea,
Vietnam.
with them trying to take over these islands and building islands and military establishment. China is trying to build their own empire in the South, and the only way to do that is to make sure the United States is not paying attention and that we are not
Also,
actively engaging them where they go.
Speaking of China, China is, and this is the problem with our current political system, China is on a 100-year plan to dominate the world. Maybe
they already
more.
have. It's their
right?
turn, though. It's their golden age.
And America can't get past the next fucking election, right? And so when you're on a 100-year plan, you can take your time, see into the future, know that this is a multi-generational goal. And if you look at what they're doing, the way they're positioning themselves around the world, the way they are going into Africa and striking deals with people to get natural resources, they're going into the Caribbean island and just buying up property. Just so that there will be,
because they
like,
own
a
so much
presence
American
there.
debt, they have the money to do it.
Right. And again, we are now, one president does something, the next president completely wipes it out. Everything Trump does, the next Democratic president will completely wipe it out. And we are running in place because we can't get past the entertainment of news and fucking politics. And this, again, this is Rome, right? This is Rome just before the fall. And unless we can get our head out of our asses and put ourselves
And
on
stop
a
putting
plan
lead in our wine.
like that, like, we're done. And again, I said this a few episodes ago, like, maybe, you know, acknowledging you're hurling towards the ground after you've jumped off a cliff doesn't get you a parachute. Like, it could be too late. You know what I mean? And that
Could be.
is...
April 16th.
Yes, April 16th.
Erdogan.
Something that you alluded to a bit jumpily, but you alluded to nonetheless. Yes, Erdogan changed the constitution. April 16th, held a referendum. A lot of people in Turkey said, I don't know if this is legit. But
It wasn't.
it probably wasn't, but he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and you don't fight back the president after he just had 40,000 people arrested and probably killed in a torture cell. So yeah, that is something that Donald Trump patted him on the back for. Good job. Good job. In this situation, there's only good people on your side.
Let's not forget his people were beating protesters on American soil.
In Washington, D.C.
And nothing happened. I mean, I don't know if anything can happen if you have diplomatic immunity, but I mean, Trump didn't even say anything about it.
Nothing.
And those videos are pretty freaking gross. I mean, to see that happening on American soil like that, to me, was really fucking shocking, and it should be. And I don't think enough news was made of it. I don't think people put Trump on the spot to respond to it. I think the media fucked up on that one. They freaking get mad at him because he uses one sentence wrong, but they couldn't really, you know, have him tackle the issue of how can you let this happen outside of your house.
Well, I'll tell you
like,
what.
it literally happened on his front fucking lawn. And, yeah, I mean...
Tell you what, the
this is
Russians
guys
did a very
about
good
Turkey.
job of making sure Turkey did not enter NATO. Because they were on the brink of doing it, and then all this stuff went down, and now we can't. We just can't let them in. And at this point, it's
And the
looking
European
like
Union, right? They were
they were trying to enter the European Union as well, and now they can't. Because they just got pushed in this direction, so now they're buddying up to Russia. They want to make sure Syria stays stable so they don't get refugees pouring over the border. And they need money. So, of course... I mean, they had a little bit of a spat with the Russians at first. They accidentally shot down one of their jets, I think, in 2016. But, you know, that wasn't a big deal enough for them to stop talking. And the Russians do not want Turkey to become part of NATO. They do not want them to join the European Union. It's not in their national interest. So you throw every wrench you can. And the Russians are fantastic at that. I always have to give them credit for that. Besides Russian winter, you don't mess with Russian intelligence services.
cool.
April 24th.
God damn it, what?
Macron.
No, that's May 7th.
Yeah, you're getting into May, which I love May. May is my
Yeah, your
month.
birth.
That's
your birth
my
month.
next picture.
Yeah, we definitely did not do our homework, right?
April 24th is Trump's executive order was challenged by cities that he had basically tried to sign an executive order saying you have to work with immigration officials or else we're going to pull funding from you. And Jeff Sessions was all up in there. Marijuana's the devil, and anybody that doesn't work with us is against us, and you know, Red Scare 1950s all over again. And Jeff Sessions lived through all that. I'm sure he was very much a McCarthyite. But this is the first big challenge that just multiple cities and states decided to challenge an executive order in court. I'm sure that every president has had their executive orders challenged, but I don't think it's ever been at this level where we've gone through 4 months now, and every month he signed an order that was challenged, and in almost every time,
most famously the travel ban, right? I mean,
yeah, and that three times,
and three different versions of it, right?
Yeah, well, now the appeals court is holding on because they're waiting to see what the Supreme Court says, and with the bandito of Neil Gorsuch sitting in a chair that's not his, it's likely that he will just follow along with whatever Trump says, because despite the fact that he's supposed to be an unbiased, lifelong appointed judge that's not supposed to worry about politics, Neil Gorsuch owes Donald Trump his left nut, apparently, because he only needs his right one.
Wow. Okay.
So
you know something we don't.
executive order challenged, and that I think that challenge was upheld. You can't just keep money from these cities because they're not complying. I mean, there are rules for a reason.
So is this an example then of a government working in the way it's supposed to be? The checks and balances?
I think one of the things that Donald Trump has done is he's proved how much we really don't need as much federal oversight. We all complain and stuff, like, we need the federal government, we need all these agencies, we need the EPA to work, we need all this. But as he fails, states step up.
Yeah.
Cities step up. Local leaders step up. And is what's I think that's the trend, and that the one good thing we can take away from 2017 is that we've proved, because Donald Trump has proved that we can do it. That we don't need we don't need the Barack Obama who was like our daddy watching over us, and we were just like, I'm just gonna sit in my bath, give me candy.
No, and I brought this up, in your house the other night when we were, doing our homework, which we obviously didn't do, right?
You can't read your handwriting.
I was a little drunk, man.
You look like Mitch McConnell's granddaughter when she wrote in the
Maybe it was me, and it wasn't Mitch McConnell's granddaughter. Anyway, but no, you're right. And I think that's the one thing that I can say Trump has. I don't know if he's done it directly or if he meant to do it, but it has shown us that as a country, I mean, net neutrality, right? California stepped up, New York, other states said that they're going to create laws in which if, these providers don't abide by net neutrality laws, then they can't, sell their product in the state. And there's been other instances of it, like you just said, this whole appeal. And, hey, we're doing it. Every state has the power to do it because we are a loose union of 50 little countries. We're not supposed to be beholden to the federal government. And for better or worse, the Trump presidency has made states step up. And
unfortunately, the biggest power that Congress has is interstate commerce. Anything that's interstate commerce, they have the power to regulate, which is why every rule since the EPA Clean Air Act has been able to be upheld, because the Supreme Court says if it touches interstate commerce, then Congress can regulate it. But, with the FCC changing the rule, I mean, honestly, all that's needed is for the Congressional Review Act. All you need is for Congress to step in and say, nope, sorry, we don't like that, change it back. And they would, and then argument done. But now we have to let the states do it, and then there's going to be court challenges in federal court. Does the state have the power to do this or not? And then Congress is going to have to make a rule, and it just gets out of control, and when it shouldn't be. They did this on purpose. There was millions of fraudulent and bot comments that were submitted to the FCC during the review period, and they just ignored it. Ajit Pai just ignored everything. He didn't care because he was doing what he was told, which is not what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to be heading a department.
He was also making stupid YouTube videos.
Yeah, that Harlem Shake video was so stupid. I think he's getting sued for that, by the way.
He better.
But anyway, so
May 7th.
There you go. Can we get into that?
Yes,
so Emmanuel Macron.
Go with your Emmanuel.
Macron.
Emmanuel.
He created I believe he was the one that created the political party, right? And March or whatever it's called. He wasn't even a political figure before this election came up. A lot of people were worried Marie Le Pen and the far right would take this election the same way that Trump took it in the United States.
Her dad lost an election, so
people
were like,
she's another heir apparent. But I just found it that again, this kind of plays off Brexit, our vote, our election 2016. That this was a stop, and it's, like you said, everything swings back, right? France could have gone right wing. It could have been just a continuation of that right wing movement that had been taking place since Trump. And I was just happy to see it wasn't. He was a young guy. He won the presidency at 39,
youngest since Napoleon to lead the country.
I wouldn't say he's a socialist per se, but I mean definitely on that political spectrum. And he's been doing good for France. He's been trolling Trump, which I think is great. With make the world great again or whatever.
All the grants that he's proposing to bring American science. As long as Donald Trump is president,
if your country's not going to let you do it, come here and do it with us. He's picking up the tab for the U.S. when we went away from the Paris Accord. So I like him. I don't know too much about him. He's only been there for a year and change. I want to see where France goes with him as a leader. I was just happy to see him win, and it's cool to see a young figure, someone who almost did a Bernie. I mean, he was all grassroots, young people. No one really knew him. He started his own political party, and he won. So I mean, it's proof that it could be done. And maybe we can one day hope to do it here. But I mean, that's really all I have to say about it. To me, it was big news. And I mean, now, France is one of the leading nations in the European Union, especially now Britain not wanting to be one. And him and Merkel have been, they've been leading the charge this year. And I'm interested to see where it goes and what France has to do and, what they have in store for the future.
And 2 days afterwards, Trump realizes that Marie Le Pen did not win. So he fires James Comey.
Wait, did that happen before the
May 9th?
You're right. May 9th. There you go. So James Comey. So that's a big deal. I mean, we've talked a lot about it here in our show since we started. Well, Joe, Steve, what do you think were the ramifications of this James Comey firing? And could Trump have avoided that? Could Trump have avoided this whole fucking fiasco if he didn't fire James Comey?
He had been president for barely 4 months at that point. Not even. We're talking about a couple months he's been president. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. And just like he said in this recent interview, he thinks he can do whatever he wants with the Justice Department. It's his to control, which I don't know if you ever saw Frost Nixon. You can't.
I don't think he knows who Dick Nixon is, bro.
Nonetheless, he fires James Comey because he thinks that'll be it. Like, nobody will talk about, if I fire him, everybody's going to be like, well, he's the president, he can do it. But Jeff Sessions couldn't because he recused himself.
Which pissed off Trump.
Smart move on that part, but at the same time, that's what Trump probably hired him for, besides the fact that he thought by taking him out of Alabama that it would still be a safe Senate seat.
And it was,
Doug Jones.
Cough, cough.
Yeah. So that was two mistakes that Donald Trump made right there. Firing James Comey was a huge, huge mistake because it forced... Steak? No, it's a mistake. It forced Republicans to have to appoint a special prosecutor because they knew that there's no way they could live that down. You also don't want to
piss off Rod Rosenstein.
Well, at the same time, yeah, but Donald Trump had already been talking smack about every intelligence agency, every law enforcement agency that wasn't the police or the military. He was basically saying aren't doing their job, can't do their jobs, they suck at their jobs. And it's all because they are the ones that would actually be the ones to prosecute him or to accuse him of committing a crime. The military is not going to accuse him of committing a crime. Local police aren't going to accuse him of committing crimes. So of course, he's going to say that they're the ones that are suffering every day. Give them all the money and the power. We don't need anybody else. But if the FBI and the CIA and all of these major intelligence agencies that we've always counted on to protect our country that have thwarted dozens upon dozens upon dozens, possibly even hundreds of terrorist plots that could have been committed against the United States and they were thwarted. Now all of a sudden, because they're focused on him, they're suddenly wrong, they're fake, it's a witch hunt. He completely forgot that Salem ever happened because he said this is the biggest witch hunt in history when there used to be a time when people actually thought there were witches and they hunted them. And now he thinks that just because they're coming after him that the world is against him. That how could I possibly have been wrong? How could you think that anything I do is bad? Well, now you've got, Mueller. You got Robert Mueller, who was a respected on both sides kind of guy who worked for Republicans, worked for Democrats, served this country as a soldier, as a law enforcement officer, and he closes in on them. He gets 3 guilty pleas. He gets, well, not guilty pleas necessarily, but Papadopoulos, Manafort, he gets Flynn. He gets these people, and they plead guilty, or they are indicted on enough counts that it's possible to say they're going to get away with it. So Trump knows he's probably pre-filling out pardon forms. I'm sure his printer ran out of paper. This is a person who never got in trouble before and was never held accountable before as a private citizen. And now, realizing that he's a public citizen, it's slowly trickling into him that he actually can get in trouble for it. But he doesn't want to admit it. He doesn't want anybody to see that he's worried about that.
Do you think he really understands?
I think he does.
I mean, up until 2 weeks ago, he said he would still fire him, like Mueller.
I don't think he is going to get in trouble. That's the first thing. Yeah. Because, again, Mueller can only make the recommendation. Is up to what Congress will do.
And like you said before, he made Democratic Congress.
He can make the recommendations, but he still had the power to go after Manafort, Papadopoulos, and Flynn. Got guilty pleas. Those.
But we've already learned that Trump supporters are not going to tie him into those people. They're going to, disown them. He's going to distance himself from them.
I'm just making the point that Mueller does have power. It's not just about making recommendations to Congress. He can't just go and arrest the president but he can arrest the other people around him. He can have.
I'm just-
But
the
would that be a
FBI
win for the United States or for the
I'm
people?
just waiting for like Mueller's net to go around like Mike Pence or Jared Kushner and hear like Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying the president didn't know them. They weren't really a part of the administration. They
They're
didn't do
not in the,
anything.
they're not in the room when this was being said.
That's
Even
true.
though
He
Kushner's there
probably
every
would.
time.
The vice president was just there for coffee.
Gee, I thought he was still at a Colts game.
Paid for by taxpayer money.
$250,000 down the drain.
So June 1st, what did Trump do
Is
on
it,
June 1st?
by the way, is
Well,
it just me or does Mike Pence look like he authored the Mutant Registration Act?
It really, really does. You're right. He looks like someone just poured lemon juice on his face, left him in the sun, and then let him write a bill about registering all Jews because he hates
Wow,
Jews and he
okay.
hates the Muslims and he
that-
hates the gays.
well, you just took it from mutant to something else, but okay.
Well, I mean
That's
the
what
illusion
mutants are
we're
supposed
going,
to represent.
Yeah.
But still, you took it there.
May 17th, Manning is released from jail. Her sentence commuted by President Barack Obama.
And I am on the Paris Accords.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah,
you can
that's where
say,
I'm at
you
too,
can go to
man.
the Paris Accords, but you know
I thought we were
we
gonna
did a
talking about
timeline for a
Manning.
reason. That is Manning.
I thought we weren't going to talk about Manning.
I'm
Sure,
just saying
go
it was
ahead.
released.
Are we
That
done? Are we
Obama
done?
released Chelsea Manning,
Yay, are we done?
convicted
Who
of
Trump called a traitor.
who Trump called a traitor, and at the same time, right afterwards, he pardons Joe Arpaio and this
that was
one
your
gentleman who was convicted
That
of
was
like
your
80 counts of financial fraud. He's willy-nilly just throwing around his pardon pen as if it doesn't matter, but then, you know, at the same time, completely hypocritical, complaining that someone who many people believe was doing a service to America was commuted. And honestly, I forget, what was Chelsea Manning's name pre-operation, pre-op?
Who knows? Doesn't
Daniel, man? I don't know.
matter. Okay, I have a question.
We have an answer.
Michael?
This is completely unrelated. It's just something I wanted to bring up in the last.
You go,
one of
Glen
the last things
Coco.
we talked about. How do we feel about sort of the on cue, on script Republican Party sort of and Fox News establishment or wing of the Congress sort of trying to systematically discredit the FBI and Mueller?
Well, that's related. That's not unrelated.
Yeah, I think that
It's
if...
state propaganda working for him. They got him elected.
No, but-
you got to keep going.
but-
That's
but-
your golden cow. That's your golden
Isn't
goose.
it, like, is that not insane?
Dude, Obama got
Like,
shit
we're-
because he saluted with a cup of coffee in his
No,
hand.
no, no. But I'm saying
And
this
then-
is something different. This is a news arm that is controlling what the president says, and now
It's true.
trying
He
to
spends hours
affect
a
an
day watching them.
investigation based on the wishes of the
Are you
president.
talking about Fox now? I'm
Fox,
sorry, okay,
yes.
okay.
That and you're just not. It's not just Fox. It's people in the administration,
Yeah.
people in the Congress that are now trying to discredit an entire organization because they feel like it is circling around the dragon head.
I mean,
And we just walk past it because there's so much shit every day, and it's hard
But
to like
Benghazi!
focus on.
But Benghazi and emails, guys. Benghazi and emails.
are we again
I don't-
surprised of the hypocrisy
No,
of the
but it's
right
not
right now?
about are we surprised, right?
It's just how far it's being
this is
taken and no one's saying
happening,
anything.
and we're just so used to it. There is a whirlwind of shit going around every day, and it's sort of hard to distinguish the farts, right? And
I think
I
you
don't know.
distinguish it by wondering that he who smelt it had in fact dealt it.
Dealt it.
So if you're smelling the farts,
it's also why Trump said that crooked
well,
Hillary.
a Trump in England means a fart.
Okay.
Really?
That's what the
That's
word
right.
Trump
Oh,
means.
sure.
I didn't
is-
learn that from my cab driver.
Pence means a penny, the smallest unit of
Yes.
money.
Yes,
I do know
now we
that.
knew
So
that.
basically, the Trump Pence team is a cheap fart.
Wow. Cool. Thank you, Joe.
Go
Thanks for that.
Britain.
By the way, Bradley Edward Manning,
Bradley.
Bradley, there you go.
There we go. Bradley.
who
Now
just turned
Chelsea.
30 years old, by the way.
Well,
December 17th.
Happy birthday
belated.
to a
Chelsea.
former parent trader that one president thinks was okay and this one thinks it should be hung.
Is it okay to get into the Paris Accords now? Is
Nope.
that next? God,
May 24th, Taiwan Supreme Court recognizes same-sex marriage. And that's pretty much it. First one in Asia to do it.
cool.
June 1st, June 1st. How about you let me stick on the timeline?
You know what?
You did mention that ahead of time.
Well, you could have told me that before I got the lower thirds for Steve over here.
All right, are we doing Paris Accords then?
Yep.
All right, Paris Accords.
Just in case it wasn't a surprise to anybody watching, the Paris
graphic
Accords.
is now insane.
The graphic is now a boy.
And it was like up in Brexit for a while. We're talking about like U.S. politics.
The
like,
graphic
is
is definitely worthy now. But,
Yeah.
you know, at the one point when we
God, I hate that stupid
withdrew
face.
from this accord, which accord means agreement, we were among two nations that did not agree to it, one of which was Syria, and it's most likely because their ambassador was walking to the United Nations to vote. So, you know,
and now we're the only nation because they have.
And now we're the only ones because somehow, if the rest of the world believes something, then it can't possibly be right.
And this is important now because specifically with the tweet he put out, Christmas Day or whenever it was he put out this tweet yesterday, whatever. He clearly doesn't understand the issue. Clearly, this goes back
He also
to what
doesn't
Steve was saying.
understand the Paris Accord because there was no teeth to it. Everyone in that agreement decides what they will do.
Yeah,
there is no regulation that says you have to do this. It is just what you agree to do.
But again, do you think the people that voted for him know that?
No,
do you think they understand that? Of course not. So again,
they see is the word
this
power.
is him saying what he needs to say to get
it.
his supporters to just clap their hands and say he did something because he's not doing jack shit.
They see the word Paris and they're like, "That's not America. I don't like it.
That's Frenchy. That's not. We're going back to the days where we couldn't. We're going to call them Liberty fries with freedom fries, right? But look, this is a mistake again. The same thing with the TPP. It just puts us again. We're catching up from behind, and we're giving other nations maybe an excuse to say that this isn't the right step, even though everyone signed up into it. And I'm glad France is picking up the tab for the money we're supposed to be putting.
It's just an agreement where that's like me and you have an agreement, and I come to the table and say, hey, this is what I'm going to do to make my house better. And you say, this is what you're going to do to make your house better. If you don't live up to your side of the deal, or I don't live up to my side of the deal, there's no enforcement action in this. There is no benefit to pulling out of it. You know why? Because you can sort of change what you've agreed to do at certain intervals.
But if you're not even at the table, then.
But Trump drinks golden bottles of Trump water. He doesn't care what gets poisoned. He doesn't care whose air is poisoned because
he'll
he's
be
fine.
Dead by the time before the Earth ends.
I'm Trump drinking water.
Listen, he doesn't care about his kids. He's already told them from the very beginning. They've quoted this. Don't trust anybody. And then when they say they trust their dad, and he's like, "Well, you just made a mistake." I said, "Don't trust anybody." This is a person whose own father was probably very neglectful of him. He transfers this down to his own kids. I mean, he pays a lot of attention to Ivanka. That's a different story. But his own kids, his own sons, he has made sure that they grow up as cynical, as narcissistic and megalomaniacal as he did, where they think that it's okay to cut the tails off of baby elephants, to hunt, bears in hibernation, to I don't know, what was that picture we used for episode 6 or something like that, with him just like chilling on
he
the
was
log.
doing with his flannel, just introspectively thinking about the lives he's going to take that day.
Like, these people, they'll never have to worry about anything. Their water will always be filtered. Their air will always be purified. They'll never have to touch a dirty person. They'll never have to touch a homeless person or hug a veteran.
By the way, completely off topic, but you just said something that made me think of that. So there's a video circulating, I think it was yesterday, where Trump visited, I forget where, some first responders. Bunch of them were white, and there was this one black first responder there. He shook everyone's hand, literally skipped over him and shoved them to the side and kept shaking everyone else's hands. Someone wrote on a comment that it could have been edited, blah, blah. I don't think it was.
To see that video.
I'll show it to you guys later. If anyone watching, look for it. It happened after Christmas. But that almost just blatant, like, he's not trying to hide who the fuck he is, and yet everyone's still there claiming, like, he's not a racist, he's not this, he's not that, when clearly he's done everything to show you
he didn't give black voters a reason to vote for him. He just said, you've got nothing to lose. That's that wasn't he didn't tell them a policy. He didn't say he was going to do anything. I mean, Barack Obama literally sat down with prisoners in penitentiary and talked to them. Said, you know why you're here. I'm not here to let you free. I'm here to talk to you and to help you understand that I, as the president, as an African-American man, I understand what's going on here, but you have to understand you have to take responsibility for your own actions. Donald Trump will never, ever wash the feet of the poor like the Pope does. He will never go visit a prison, visit an orphanage. He visits Puerto Rico and he starts tossing paper towels. I mean, they had to stop him from throwing cans of chicken. He was going to start throwing cans of chicken at these people, and they had to stop him because he really thought that was a good idea.
Because he's never been around. He doesn't know what the world below being a rich billionaire who inherited everything from his father, what that world looks like. He doesn't know.
I'm trying to remember too that he complained about the original round of tax cuts that Reagan had proposed. There's video of him going around saying how stupid it was.
But Trump's a hypocrite.
He's a
So
massive
And we
that's not
could say
What
that.
do we got next?
August 21st, total solar eclipse of the sun.
Okay.
A little
Not
redundant,
Robert
but
Mueller.
we needed that. Well,
right.
total solar eclipse hit
You
August
literally
21st.
went with the original list after I thought we had edited some out.
We did not. This is what we wrote down. Your
This is
list
what- this
is
is my
chicken
list,
scratch. Your list is chicken scratch, and it looks like there's. Is that blood?
That's chocolate, I think.
That's
we were
chocolate.
eating.
That's chocolate. So
Yeah.
how about we'll go?
This
with
is not
my
a good
list?
look for me right now, guys.
How about we'll go from my
I was
list?
really sick, right?
So June, we skipped over July because
Nothing
nothing happened in July except for America's birthday. Happy birthday, America! I'm sure some stuff happened, but we're going through the summer break of Congress because they need tons of breaks, $100,000 a year, and platinum health insurance.
And,
we don't need any of that.
And what do they get for life? They get their pensions for life,
Yep.
right? And health insurance for them and their families for life, given by the government. But God forbid
So-
you want that for the rest of the people in the
Yeah,
country.
God forbid that we follow the first
Hey,
couple
my
lines of the
wife is
Constitution.
watching.
And Alex.
Hey, Yessie.
And Alex. So the eclipse happens, first one in 99 years, and Donald
And Trump
Trump
looks
stares
straight
right
at
at
it.
Of course, they say later he put on protective glasses, but I mean, he literally pointed and looked at it. Like,
Again, because he's a child and he needs to prove that he's the best at everything. And
I've got the
this is
best
really-
eyes. My eyes cannot be hurt by the sun.
This is
Or the
really
moon.
the sad part of all of this. Like, aside from the fact that he's like a megalomaniac, like he is a sad little man who constantly has to be reminded of how good he needs to tell himself he is. He cannot handle bad news. He cannot handle introspective criticism, and he cannot admit that he is wrong.
I mean, honestly,
Only
apparently he just has a bunch of people
these-
walking around telling him all the good news about him.
No, but this is what I mean. That is the sign of a small man.
Mm-hmm. He teeny tiny.
But
Anything else happen in August? My brother and sister had their birthdays in August. It was
Happy
the end of the
birthday.
summer.
I don't have pictures for that.
No? I didn't get pictures from their birthdays? Okay. What did I do in August? Did you do anything in August?
Did I?
No. September 2nd. North Korea successfully tests a hydrogen bomb, which everybody thought at first was an earthquake. Measured like, I think, a 5.5 coming out of North Korea. And they're like, what's that? And they're like, well, they're probably testing on the bomb. They keep saying they're going to do it. But the radiation apparently has been leaking from these test sites and poisoning people. But they don't care because it's North Korea. So that happened on September 2nd.
All right.
Okay.
September 6th, Catalonia.
Catalonia. We talked about this briefly in another episode, so if anyone here
Briefly, it was like
watching,
a whole episode. Wasn't it the episode we had to re-record?
I think so. Right? Yeah, that was a bad day.
So I have a picture of Saturn.
Oh, Cassini. We're not there yet.
Where's Cassini? Cassini, September 15th.
Yeah, we did have. I know. I got. There's a picture of Catalonia there, right?
Nope.
It should be. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there is.
Why do so many Hispanic countries'
100%.
flags are a triangle, a star, and stripes? Like, I get it, but I don't at the same time. I mean, Puerto Rico, Cuba, their flags are inverts of each other.
Steve, it says Independencia with a bunch of people putting.
always in
That
Spanish.
looks like a Puerto Rican flag.
See?
That is just rude. No, but no, you're right. Yeah.
That's not a Puerto Rican flag?
No,
It's not.
that's
That's, the flag
that's
of
a Catalonia.
There's
Oh,
this
what's
yellow
different?
and red.
I mean,
Oh, it's yellow. Okay.
in Cuba and Puerto Rico literally look the same, just inverted colors. So, I mean, yeah, it is what it
to
is.
show their unity.
Look at Honduras and El Salvador, Paraguay,
Okay.
Argentina, all the same. Colombia, Ecuador.
So
go down the line.
Catalonia decides to leave the Spanish Union, I guess. It decides to leave Spain. I mean, all the regions
They're
of
in the
Spain.
top- yeah, they're-
Spexit?
Spexit.
Yeah, that sounds nearly racist.
Shit,
But
I
not
didn't
quite.
make that correlation.
Yeah,
till you said it,
well,
bro.
now, look, they wanted to leave. Almost every region of Spain wants to leave at some point in time, but Catalonia has Barcelona. It's got Andorra and France on its borders. It's got the Mediterranean Sea.
All the good stuff.
So I got all the good stuff, and it doesn't want anybody else to have them, so they wanted
So
to leave.
stingy.
I still am slightly leaning towards the let Catalonia free kind of thing, but at the same time, I do understand how important it is to keep a country together. There is no real recourse for places, especially in the Spanish Constitution. There's no way for someone to leave. And anytime you want to be independent, I mean, like we said in the previous episode, power is never just given away. It has to be taken. independence has to be won. It has to be taken. The Declaration of
Through blood.
Independence. They knew that if they did not hang together, that they certainly would hang
together.
together. they, I
I
mean,
see
they
what
they
you did
had
there.
they pledged their life, their liberty, and their fortunes.
And their love.
And I believe Ben Franklin wrote a song about that, actually. You have to imagine he must have been pretty crazy to go and try and discover electricity when there was no such thing as electricity.
You left out the best part of that meme.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to call Ben Franklin a stoner.
But he was a stoner.
He
though.
might have very well been. I
He
mean,
was.
He
Let-
loved French prostitutes.
He liked that too.
But let's not disrespect Nikola Tesla.
Most was probably murdered.
Oh, that okay.
By the way, that
You
is
come after Edison
one of-
and Tesla is going down.
That's
I'm
one
sorry.
of my most, well, not most, because there's Black Panther and Infinity War, but the current war that's about Tesla and Edison. And
Is there a movie out?
No, it's not coming out yet, but it's like
okay.
Benedict Cumberbatch and a bunch of other people.
Oh, did not know that.
Super interesting.
Cool. What's the name of the movie?
The current war.
The current. Oh, okay. Damn, now I want to watch that.
Yeah, somebody
Yeah,
on the
check
R
out the
Squared
trailer.
Network is saying, "Hey, babe," to your wife.
Hey,
It wasn't me.
All right, so now we're up to September 15th.
15th, that's
Cassini?
Cassini.
I
Big
mean,
Saturn is.
yeah, I just think it's cool that we as humans can do this. It was big news, maybe not for everyone, but Cassini pretty much spent a couple of days or weeks
They plunged it into the atmosphere of
and
Saturn after they got everything.
they needed, and it's pretty cool. It's just like, you know, the Voyager being out there in interstellar space.
Did we get any pictures
Yeah.
of like the surface of Saturn?
No,
Or-
hell
or-
no. It was, that shit itself imploded
No.
by like
There's no
halfway
way to
through
make
it.
that atmosphere is so caustic.
But there are pictures of over it, like right when it started, and it's just beautiful to see. Like there are worlds. Like I know we know that.
Listen, when I play video
but to,
games
like,
and I
watch
jump off
that.
of a tower and I'm falling towards the sky, I get like my heart skips a little bit because I feel like I'm falling. I do not want to watch a video of a spacecraft falling into a planet because it would frighten me.
Okay.
But nonetheless, we proved that Saturn was there,
Okay.
so that's a good thing.
Also, what I want to get is some footage from like the surface or under the water of Europa.
Well,
moon.
the
Is
moon.
there good information
thing is
on
that
that? Yeah.
as soon as Donald Trump is elected, we find a bunch of planets that you can live on.
Hey,
Coincidence?
whatever
I
the
think
catalyst
not.
is.
So nonetheless, yeah. So they say that there's a possibility that there's liquid water and bacteria under these ice sheets of Europa, and the other moon, Titan, or something like that. And then you could possibly live on them, kind of like how the Ewoks lived on their moon, of the forest moon of Endor, except it's an ice moon, like Hoth.
And they took good pictures of the rings. We understood how that works.
Multiple rings, all ice and rocks and whatnot. Some of the size of buses, just floating around Saturn. Just nice.
I think it's interesting.
Probably,
we're out there
I
doing
bet
our
you there's a
thing.
petition out there to rename Saturn Beyonce because we
Oh,
liked it
no.
and we put rings on it.
And with that,
Signed God.
we are moving to November 5th.
All right.
November 5th is skipped over October 1st. You
What
skipped
happened
an
October
entire
1st?
month. Are
You know what?
serious?
You know what? You're right. You stick to the timeline.
Exactly.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Done with the timeline, George.
Done
You
with the
are
timeline.
cut off.
I'm done.
You've forgotten half of the year so far. October 1st, Mandalay Bay.
Oh shit. My
Yes,
bad.
oh
I
shit.
got nothing.
No, you got nothing.
59
Steve. Sorry
people.
about that, man. And
59
500
people.
injured. 500
Over
plus
500
injured. Yeah.
And still, the police will not let anybody figure out what happened. They won't release any details. No one has seen Stephen Paddock's body. Nobody has seen the security footage. Nobody understands why the timelines were off by the FBI. How a man
But
was
people
able
were
to kill
giving out bump stocks.
Yeah.
Oh,
They were
you know what?
that
Just
was
because
Roy Moore.
just
right
because
there.
it ties in, and you're right. That was my mistake. This ties in. So, Steve, if you can maybe pull up the October 31st, the Home Depot, the terror attack in New York. Me and Joe were talking about how there's similarities there, right? Like these things happen, and then we don't learn anything after the fact. I mean, I was trying to look up right now before the show what's been going on with this guy. I mean, he ran over some people in New York. There was a terror attack, a handwritten note saying that he did this for ISIS. And yet, within 2 days, it was out of our news cycle. And the same thing with the Mandalay Bay. I'm not
Well,
trying.
it was
you know,
out of
we
the
can
news
say-
cycle, but it was in a lot of Kim Guadagno's attack ads.
Of course, because you're trying to scare people right before the goddamn election. I'm not trying to hear to spout some conspiracy theories. It just seems to be very weird that I've been to Vegas.
Well, we have
there's,
nothing,
There's
and then the last
cameras
thing I heard-
everywhere. There's cops everywhere.
The
Okay,
last thing I
people-
heard was they arrested his brother for something recently.
Yeah, and they only have this one picture of him. Like, it was important. Obviously, these people all passed away, and funny how we can't politicize that in the moment. When I think that should be the time that no disrespect to who passed away. I think it's tragic, but shouldn't a tragedy be a fucking cue for us as a country to like make
Not
it?
if it involves guns.
Of course
Don't
not, because
touch 'em if they
and you know
involve
how I feel
guns.
about it. I'm
Murder
not
children.
anti-gun. I'm just saying that there should be some reform, and then we shouldn't tell people, oh, it's politicizing. Talk about it. Yeah, 500 fucking people plus got injured. 50 freaking people died. It is a time to politicize the gun issue in our country and how easy it is to get guns. And
I think so
here's
many
the
people are
thing.
confused because they're wondering why some guy who had money, he wasn't on the radar. He didn't do anything to hurt anybody before.
Translation,
all
a
of a
white
sudden,
guy.
Yeah, white
and
guy.
all of a sudden, this seemingly normal gambler in Vegas is somehow popping open windows, capping 59
And
people,
spraying people.
ordering killing 59 people and injuring over 500
And the response
more,
time,
and
too, to
nothing. Yeah, and he wasn't taken down. And when apparently he is, and there's no proof of it. There's no video. There's no body cam. There's no footage.
So
There's
which
no
is
pictures.
ridiculous in Vegas.
no
There's
report.
cameras everywhere in Vegas.
The thing is, though, I know that like sometimes there is this like urge to get information right away, and sometimes news cycles move on, but that doesn't mean like investigations aren't continuing, and it doesn't mean like nothing's being done or things can't happen. Just because it's not in the public feed right in front of your face doesn't mean that it doesn't exist anymore. And I think that is a sort of part of the problem, because something is not like headline news. We think it's gone because it's out of our sort of purview.
But it almost
Now
is
we
if
think
you're not
it's
paying
out of their
attention.
That's
purview.
very true as well. But and at the same time, though, one of the biggest issues about this was not necessarily what Stephen Paddock did, but what people did. Where as it was happening, there were other people posting on social media and posting things like that they saw a second shooter, or that this was an ISIS attack
But
by
that's been
Bernie
happening
Sanders
since
supporter.
the Boston bombings, or before, right?
But
Like,
people will listen. Even if it's only a couple people, people still listen. And it's like we care so little about each other. We want chaos. Some people just want to watch the world burn. And you will get these people that are like, it's an ISIS-inspired Bernie Sanders supporter shooting up Vegas, and he's got 14 guns and 7 hands, and one's coming out of his butt, and he's killing people left and right, and he threw a baby out the window. And people will believe that stuff, and then they won't check back to see if it happened or not.
well, so here's another thing. A lot of this is tribalism, right? And I think that, with all that social media sort of is supposed to bring us together, I think it isolates us. And I think a lot of people feel lonely, right? And I think joining a crowd, whatever crowd, whether that crowd is a crowd of people with pitchforks or digital pitchforks, as I like to call it,
Or tiki torches.
It is a way to feel like you belong to something because you are joining the masses, and like we are essentially sharing a moment, a common goal, and that sometimes that goal happens to be the destruction of a person's character or an idea, or just hate, which seems to be the thing that people sort of coalesce around in the world of Reddit and Twitter. But I think it speaks to the inert loneliness that we all have, why people will just jump onto something.
So
because we can all throw a stone together.
So lonely.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Inside, real alone.
Being
The
serenaded.
Kim Jong-un song. November
Shout out to
5th.
Jason.
November 5th, the Paradise Papers are leaked. Everybody loves a good bit of alliteration.
No, I'm a little bit embarrassed that I did not know about this.
A lot, because it was very, very quick to hush it up because so many important people were swept up.
Explain the Paradise
The Queen
Papers
of
to me.
England, Apple, Microsoft, like anybody who's anybody
yes.
was caught to have been. There's a law firm in Panama that had been used by all these companies to create shell companies and whatnot to hide money offshores, to create these little tax shelters. And there was a massive, massive undertaking by journalists and lawyers all across the world that somehow were able to keep it secret that they were looking into this. They finally found these papers at this law firm that had gone under an investigation, and a German newspaper leaked millions of documents that proved that these companies, that even people like the Queen of England, I think a Prime Minister of New Zealand, All these people had been
Justin Trudeau.
yeah,
Yeah.
that they all had links to these shell companies that were tax evasion and that were hiding money and doing tons of illegal stuff. And of course, when you have that many powerful people being brought out at once, nothing bad is going to happen to them. It's not like Al Franken hovered his hands over a boob or grabbed someone's butt and immediately he's attacked and forced to resign. That's not going to happen to these people because they are powerful enough to have this swept under the rug. And just like Stephen just said, you get things right out of our vision, and it's put on the peripheries, and then it's gone altogether, and you never get to hear a follow up. While there are still people following up on it and people that still care about it, they're never going to let it back on the news. If Google does not want this out there, it will not be in your internet search. They will bury that on the third page, right after the second page.
Hi-yo.
Good one, Joe. Good one.
Indeed. November 21st. Robert Mugabe finally resigns. He resigned faster than Roy Moore conceded his election.
Has
I mean,
Roy Moore
it wasn't
conceded
that
yet?
He has
fast.
not conceded.
No, but they did
He is
certify. They
conceded.
did certify the win. So Doug Jones will be taking office and swearing in after the new year, and much to the chagrin. Of,
How long before Doug Jones switches his party affiliation to Republican?
Oh no, I don't think that'll happen. I mean, he did say he was going to vote with some Republicans.
He
or
might
whatever.
just
He's like,
become an independent and caucus with Bernie Sanders.
yeah, whatever. Let him do whatever he wants as long as we got that extra seat in the Senate. But yeah, the whole Robert Mugabe thing that came out of nowhere. I started watching that on CNN that morning. I think it was one of the first posts I put up as a second page.
I'm sorry. One thing about Doug Jones and having another Democratic seat. The role of a senator is to represent his constituents,
Yes.
right?
His state.
The constituents in his state.
Yes.
Now, if he's representing his state, and his state is a red state, and his state is in favor of, his state is pro-life, his state is in favor of entitlement reform and tax cuts and all the rest, does he vote with the Democrats or does he vote with his constituents?
Well,
He
I
votes
think
on the platforms that he ran on, and
Yeah.
he was elected as a Democrat.
and he also was elected because of the unprecedented turnout of African Americans in Alabama. So I mean, I can't speak for all of their political views, but I'm sure that they knew who they were voting for, and he has to be beholden to them. He wouldn't have won if it wasn't for them. I think college-educated men also voted for him. He definitely, he lost the rural white vote, I think, or whatever. And but I mean, they have two senators, right? So I mean, the other ones are Republican. I'm sure they'll be doing their piece, but I'm sure he'll caucus and he'll side with Democrats in big picture things.
And every
I don't
once in
think
a while, he'll vote with the Republicans
Yeah.
just to show people in Alabama that
he's he's not a New York liberal elitist or whatever. But I mean,
I just know that, he sort of, he made some statements about sanctuary cities during the election.
Well, honestly, we won't know anything until he gets seated. Whenever Mitch McConnell decides to do that.
when is he supposed to be seated? When does the new term
When the new
start?
term starts in January.
What, the
when we
15th
come back
or
from
something?
winter break.
All right, that's it.
So Mugabe resigned. He was the longest serving head of state. He was leader of Zimbabwe, led it from being Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, out of colonial rule, then kicked out all the white people, took all their land, their economy tanked, to the point where I actually own a $1 billion note from Zimbabwe that's worth about 3 cents, I think. I mean, people literally wipe their asses with their money. Because
And what got him into trouble was that he's obviously very old. He was getting ready.
But he
to
said
step
he had
down.
the biggest and the best brain. Everybody loves him.
He
in this
wanted to
country.
appoint his wife. He wanted her to be the heir apparent, and this woman is someone who, I mean, wears like Gucci freaking shoes and designer handbags while their people are starving.
Sounds a lot like Ivanka.
Maybe it does. And so his vice president, who he kicked out of office right before he was supposed to step down, took control of the military. The military sided with him. They did not want to see his wife come to power. Pretty much took control overnight. And they did everything he said they should do, Joe. They took over the media. They arrested him, put him in house arrest, got everything on lockdown. They put out their own, I guess their own.
Everything's
speech or
okay,
what
guys.
happened. Yeah.
President's alive.
And
We're doing this for his safety.
He kind of fought it for a while, but yeah, he pretty much resigned after a few days when he.
He resigned after they promised him immunity from prosecution because clearly.
You mean after they
corrupt.
promised not to kill him?
Yeah,
basically.
Basically.
I mean, the man's like in his 90s.
He's gonna die anyway soon.
He did. There's no point to just whatever. I mean, honestly, I don't know because the people of Zimbabwe were super excited. I mean, they rallied in the streets. They hugged soldiers. They were like, "Thank you for this." you know.
But then the same party kept power.
Exactly, and that's the same thing that happened in Egypt right after Tahrir Square. You know, they all supported the military, like, oh, the military's they're coming to save us. They're getting rid of Hosni Mubarak, and then they just took over. They started beating journalists and protesters. They started, you know, abusing them the same way that the old dictators were doing, except this time they had tanks and the right to use them because the generals are in charge.
And again, the king, the priest, the commoner, and the soldier.
In this case, it was a soldier.
So I don't have any more specific dates, more just the talking points of things like...
Hey, I thought we were talking past the points.
Yeah, we are talking past those points. So
Giggity.
getting out of those talking points so we can talk past them. Mueller investigation ongoing. The Me Too movement that started in early October. That was a big thing.
And which is a Time Person of the Year. You know?
Persons, yeah. And they had somebody's elbow.
It was Alyssa Milano who started everything, actually, with her
good
tweet.
For her.
Yeah, good for her. And
brought down a lot of people that still have money and power as we speak.
It's definitely an important movement.
Yeah, I mean, and things like you were talking about before. What happened to the Home Depot terrorist? I mean, we didn't see anything after that. He was still alive, as far as I'm concerned. We get mad hurricanes, Harvey, Maria,
Irma.
Jose did not have his papers, so he went off to sea. He hit the northern Atlantic, but he still caused some flooding. You know, all these hurricanes they hit, and Congress is still passing, I think, an $81 billion budget to help with the forest fires in California.
Can we talk about Puerto Rico for 1 second, though?
Puerto Rico, where is
Puerto
that?
Rico.
Where is that?
Really?
Is that part of America?
Aren't you half Puerto Rican? It is part of America. I just still think it's sad that the Trump administration and us as a country we've forgotten our brothers and sisters down there. And you know, I lived there for a little under a year, and I still have some friends who I'm friends with on Facebook, and I see their posts and their comments, and there's still people charging their phones in their car. There's people that are still living off of generators. There's places in the mountains that are impassable. People are living without roofs. People that don't have any food, anything. And to me, it's just, you know, Houston's doing better. Florida and Miami, they're all doing better. We went there and we helped. We passed, stimulus packages to help them out to recover everything. Like, what is our indifference with Puerto Rico?
Donald Trump blames Puerto Rico for their own economic problems that he was a part of causing, but at the same time didn't blame anyone from Houston for building their city in a floodplain.
Yeah.
Didn't blame anybody in the Gulf Coast for building on the ocean, or for not having levees, or for not having...
And this is part of global warming, right?
It's part of the climate
sound
change,
like?
yeah. What does what sound like?
What does what sound
He
like?
blames the people in Puerto Rico, but doesn't blame the people in Florida and Texas.
And then a tax bill comes out that lets people write off damage from a hurricane, but not fires.
Or earthquakes, right?
Or earthquakes,
Okay.
or blizzards.
Yeah, and who gets the blizzards, who gets the earthquakes, who gets the fires?
We can only assume.
We'll let you connect the dots.
We
guys.
can only assume. It's just
But,
unfortunate that Puerto Rico happened to be in that hurricane zone, because, like, how do we exclude them? And that's how they did it. They added a 20% excise tax on things coming from Puerto Rico, which is why a lot of medical equipment, that like IV bags, pumps, everything that hospitals use that are produced in Puerto Rico, they can't get them because the factories don't have electricity. They have no running water. They can't ship things out because Congress won't let up these stupid, archaic, draconian rules that force Puerto Rican ports to operate differently than every other port in America.
It's like everything that we could have done to help them, we didn't
Exactly.
do. And it is like purposely done.
At the same time, I mean, didn't in 2017 or 2016 where the Puerto Ricans had the referendum for independence, to become a state? They voted to become a state.
And aren't they supposed to send someone here in January?
They have
now?
a delegation.
They're supposed to send it now in January.
Republicans will not listen to them.
So again, I'm not,
because they're afraid that they'll become a Democratic stronghold.
You can make up your own opinion
votes.
about Trump and how he feels about minorities, but I mean, this is almost a clear example of a willful neglect of a population that is American. These are American citizens in an American territory,
and there are more Puerto Ricans on the mainland now than the islands.
Yeah, and we're ignoring them.
Right, and a lot of people are saying they need to sort of pull themselves up by the bootstraps.
Where are the boots?
But you know what's important? White people died from heroin.
But hold on. Now,
we can't talk about Puerto Rico because white people are dying from heroin, Steve.
I want to play something from Martin Luther King on economic justice.
Cool.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges, government money, teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents, further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
True story.
This is what we are facing with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington,
Anyway, it goes on.
Does it?
But
I don't know. I didn't really know he was one for making speeches.
So,
I mean, that's just a blatant proof of just the genuine hypocrisy that people feel, and at the same time they run around all scared that their culture and their lifestyle is being attacked left and right. It's just absolutely bonkers. It's completely wrong, and it doesn't matter how many facts or how much information you present to someone, they are never going to see what they don't want to see.
And people clearly have an advantage. People have, not everyone starts a race at the starting line. People are, they clearly have an advantage.
Birth lottery.
And I think sometimes people don't want to admit it because then they think that they're part of the problem, but they're not. Admitting it would be part of the solution because, I don't blame anyone for having an unfair advantage that didn't have anything to do with the system that put that fair advantage on them. But if you're going to keep denying it and then making believe that it doesn't happen, because I hear these arguments all the time from, people on the right. I'm not even going to say Trump supporters. Like, when you talk about, inner city schools or the difference in education or the tax, the amount of, taxes that go to certain educational districts. And there's clearly a disadvantage when it comes to minorities in this country. And, then you still have people against affirmative action, against all these things that are supposed to equal the playing field. Which needs to be leveled. We're not all starting off at the same point, and it's definitely becoming more about class now than race. It's always been about race, and now it's becoming about class. It's class warfare almost in a way.
That's how you end up with a Keystone XL pipeline, where it doesn't matter how many graves you're upending, how many people tell you this is going to be bad for their water,
or
bad
Flint,
for
Michigan.
the environment, or Flint, Michigan. They just get told this is bad for us. This is killing us. You are killing us. The tax bill. You are killing us, and they're like, but it's not hurting me. So they let it go. And then the pipeline bursts. And then the lead gets into the water. And then your water is flammable because you're built near fracking, because they're like, well, the fracking is not hurting me, so I'm going to let it happen. The executive orders to open up national wildlife reserves and the Alaskan wildlife reserves and all this stuff, they don't care because it's not going to hurt them, but it will hurt other people. And they're not going to be able to do anything about it. Nobody in Washington is worried about an army of peasants coming from Alaska or from Utah or from Wyoming or the Dakotas.
Does Alaska have enough people to get an army?
Well, they pay you to live there. So,
shit.
But the point is that they're not worried about these things because they're not even worried about losing their own elections anymore. So that's where we stand right now. We are on the brink of teetering into this democratic fascist society that wants strong leaders that have nothing to say, except that they're in charge and they have the best everything and they're the best at everything they do. You have a stock market boom this year. That might be the only positive thing.
Booming for the last 7 years.
The stock market has been on the rise for 7 years, but it has grown a lot. It has grown 5,000 points since Donald Trump was elected, and he wants to claim that all for his own. But how many regular people has that affected? How many people's retirement accounts are doing better? How many people have made tons of money? A 5,000 point increase in the stock market. I mean, we should all be rich, but none of us are.
I mean, well, a lot of people's 401ks are doing better, but if you have a 401k, but I distinctly remember Trump and his cohorts and the sort of the whole Republican Party looking at the stock market, coming back and doubling. Or actually tripling under Obama, and saying regular working folks aren't feeling that. Now that they are in charge, now it's something we should look at. I remember when the employment numbers are fake until now they're in charge, so now the employment numbers are good. and it sort of speaks to this idea of non-objective truth, right? Opinion
screw
has
the
become
stock
fact.
market. We should just put all of our money in bitcoins.
I mean, Bitcoin just dropped down to 13,000. I actually might buy some, but that's
Nope, you
another
can't. They're up to
argument.
15,000 now.
Oh, well, it's up to 21 for a point, so it doesn't matter. Still down.
No, it's okay. They're down to 13,000 now.
Okay. All right, what do we got next? Because we're at the 2-hour mark.
Betsy
folks.
DeVos, she sucks. DACA.
What's new?
President won't let DACA go through without a wall because he thinks somehow the American budget is Mexico.
Okay.
And that's who's going to pay for it.
I think where we're at is that
Doesn't matter.
it's-
Cards
it's-
Against Humanity bought a bunch of land anyway to block the
It's
wall
been a
from
crazy
being
year. I hope we get a mulligan for 2018.
built. We need a
No
mulligan.
backsies. We said that at the beginning. We got that straight
From the White
Sarah
House, right?
Thing is, we
Sanders.
did cover everything. I just wanted to mention slightly, just one tiny bit at the end here, that Ajit Pai sucks.
Okay.
Matt Neutrality's awesome,
Okay.
and he ruined it for everybody. An
Or did
Oregon Court of Appeals upheld a $135,000 fine for Sweet Cakes by Melissa for refusing to bake a cake for a lesbian couple because it was proof of discriminatory action. They intended to cause them emotional harm.
Did you say sweet cakes?
Sweet Cakes by Melissa. That's the name of the
That sounds
company.
like a cat call.
They
Sweet
closed in 2015. They paid the fine, but they're trying to sue to get it back. Supreme Court's taking care of the Masterpiece case, which we will find out about probably next year. So we did cover everything that was on our list. We covered it all.
But we tried our best. It was a lot, but it was a crazy year. A lot happened all over the world here at home, and
Obviously, we didn't get literally everything that happened.
no.
But then again, nobody commented in the comment box that we missed anything. So I'm going to
Well,
assume we
everyone's
did it
it's
all
holiday
perfectly.
weekend. Everyone's at home chilling with their families, trying to get their drink on.
That's
But,
true. That's true.
But for everyone who did tune in for a while, thank you very much. We will catch you next year. Happy New Year. And again, Steve,
Yeah.
thank you so much for the opportunity to do this every
was-
week, man.
this was
This is-
good.
yeah, we can't,
We're gonna have to-
we wouldn't be able to do this without you. Steve,
You'll
so.
probably hear this like 20 more times, but we will see you next year.
Yes, yes. And tune in. We are doing On the Reel either later today or tomorrow, where we are going to count down our top 5 best and worst movies of 2017. We are going
It's all
to
objective.
do a year. No, it's fact. Especially my list. We're going to do a year in review for our focal point.
Wait, you're
and-
stealing our idea?
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's not such an original idea.
And
thought we
we
made that
are
up.
going to do a forecast for 2018, what movies we are looking forward to and what sort of we think you guys should look forward to as well. And that will include some stuff on Netflix. And by the way, Black Mirror just came out, so
I know.
we are
I'm
going
What?
to do a
Yeah,
review.
new season.
We're going
What?
to do like a 10-minute review for
I am
each
binge
episode.
watching shit tonight, dude.
So it's going down. Big things to come on the real side.
I'm gonna
of
text
things.
you by the end of the weekend, like I saw every episode.
Okay.
For real. Like,
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
Boys and girls,
2017
enemies and friends.
has, well, and whatever you're identifying as at the moment, 2017 has been quite a year. And it almost felt like it was never going to end, but
Nope.
as all good things or bad things do, it did. And we're going to see what happens next year. Hopefully it's the year of Mueller. Hopefully it's the year of the Blue Tsunami. Hopefully it's the year that Roy Moore will concede. But we may have to wait.
Doubtful.
We may have to wait till
Doubtful.
2025 for that. I implore everybody to pick up a copy of a Constitution and read it. because it's
Also,
helpful.
if the blue tsunami does happen, I implore everyone to hold every one of those Democrats
Yes.
accountable
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
and vote the fuck out of them out of office
If they
when
don't
you
hold
can.
you up.
If they don't do what they say they're going to do,
But
we
we
cannot
need
just
a couple
leave it to
independents.
them to save us. We need to make them. Do
This isn't
their
about
jobs.
pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. It's about just being responsible for our own future.
yeah, paying attention, being awake. If you really care, if you've been mad about the year that we've been having, if you're mad about who's in the White House, if you're mad
And
about
if you're
all
going to
these laws,
vote out the Republicans in 2018,
Yep.
if the Democrats don't do their job, then vote them out.
Get them out of here.
get them out and replace
Except
them
for in
with someone
2020, just you have to vote out Trump.
Yeah,
Just
in 2020, vote for Democrats.
give him a couple of years, but
Honestly, I will vote for the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man if I have to. So that's pretty much everything. We appreciate everybody that watches
And you can all find us in our little
let me
Steve,
go
we have to
through
do that.
All right,
we have to do
purple.
one last one.
at J Martinez Jr. on Twitter.
All right, there we
definitely
go.
Like and follow.
And blue. Where
This
can
is
they
cool.
find
I
you?
mean, they kind of look the same, but wherever it says
Purple.
here,
He's colorblind.
there,
Joseph S. Oswald.
that's Joseph S. Oswald. Email, Twitter, phone,
All that
send
jazz.
an owl, smoke signal, letter in the postal
Send Hedwig
service.
over.
Send me something on Amazon. Next year, we do plan on, at least I plan on trying to move forward with it, selling cups and
Oh, I thought you were
t-shirts
going to
and
say
stuff.
hard drugs.
No, we can't do
Okay.
it on camera.
Okay.
Yes. We'll wait until we find some children out front.
In front of a school.
In front of a school, yes. We need two. Actually, I'm going to put two schools right next to each other.
No, I think you should do one where you have a school on one side of the street and a church on the other.
That would work, and a senior citizen home right on the corner.
There you go.
I'm just going to stand right in the middle of all of them and just hand out drugs for like no money. I'm going to undercut the black market. So besides that, I will try to get us some coffee mugs, sweaters and T-shirts, things we will try to give away, things as prizes to viewers. If you are an ardent supporter or viewer of the show, we would love to have you on sometime. So please email Jay or go onto the page and just mention that you'd like to be on the show, and we'll find some way to get you on.
Looking at you, Josh.
Looking at Josh, looking at some other friends of mine that don't have
Alex.
Facebook that watch on YouTube. Please go to the YouTube page and subscribe. We need 100 subscribers to get our URL address. In any case, we are trying to advertise. We're trying to do better. We want to go into the new year upholding our own ideals that we want to participate, and you should too. You can't just sit and complain on Facebook and expect the world to listen to you. So,
Although we are sitting and complaining on Facebook right now. But
it's true. But it's being recorded, so we
yes. Okay.
you know, there's a little bit of accountability for us. So thank you all so much for watching. It's been a great 2017.
Yep.
We
Happy
wanna
New
make it a
Year,
great
and,
2018. Happy New Year.
For you, all you and your
And
family.
keep safe. Keep safe. I know there's 10,000 cameras in Vegas and New York City, but you still have to keep your own self safe sometimes.
Also, don't forget, it's super cold outside.
Oh my goodness!
And
it's
we
cold
could
outside.
really use some of that global warming
Right,
that
right.
the liberals promised us.
China.
But, you know, there's that. By the way, you can find me at your favorite social media network, as long as it's not Snapchat, at Steve A.M. Johnson. And anybody got anything else?
No, man. Again, thank
That's
you,
it.
everyone, and Happy New Year.
All right. Hugs,
Peace.
not drugs.
Hugs. Bye. Oh.
How about hugs and